And we picked him up now. We sight Graham Hill, former world driving champion. There he goes through turn 2 as he heads up the backstretch with apparently just 1 lap to go. Doug Zink.
All right, thank you, Howdy. And here he comes past the halfway point on the backstretch, running all alone. 3 here, and Ron Carroll.
And I pick him up, Doug. Here he comes into turn number 3. He passes me right now. Now out of number 3 into the short chute. And he'll be coming over to you, Jim Shelton.
Ronnie's right here. Handsome man with a beautiful car. Graham Hill in 24. Number 24, white red trim with oil smudges and dollar signs. And here's Sid Collins.
Here he comes down the main stretch, and there's the checkered flag for Graham Hill, winner of the Golden Anniversary Indianapolis 500-mile race. Car number 24, the American Red Ball Special.
The white flag is out as he comes by right now. Pick him up, Mike Ahern in turn 1.
All right, Sid, we've got him, and this looks like an instant replay of last year. The blue and gold Johnny Lightning Special, crowd on its feet as he goes into turn 2, and Howdy Bell. Howdy.
And the southeast vista here, the crowd stands, giving him a big wave now as Al Unser on the white flag lap goes through turn number 2. And sounding very nicely, moves right up the back stretch to Doug Zink.
And we've got him here, Howdy, and the fans, some of whom have been laying on their blankets, paying no attention. Now we're up against the fence, waving him on. Al Unser, he's in turn number 3, and Ron Carroll.
Yes, Doug, and here he is in turn 3. Al Unser, car number 3. The dark blue, yellow streak Johnny Lightning Special moves to number 4 in Jim Shelton.
Thank you, Ron. Blue car with a big number 1, and he is number 1. And now to call the winner for the 24th consecutive time is our chief announcer, the voice of the 500.
Hello, check. And here is Pat Vadan waving the checkered flag for Al Unser, winner of the 1971 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Al Unser on his final lap, Ron Carroll.
All right, and he's by us right now. Al Unser, 196.474 he qualified at, and he's in the number 1 position on his final lap as he heads to turn 2 and Howdy Bell.
He flashes by us. You know, only 4 other drivers have ever won this event 3 times, and if things go right for a couple of laps, Al will be the 5th one. Darrell?
He's right in Doug Zink's lap right now in turn 3.
Winner in 1970 and again in 71, putting 2 victories back-to-back, is within about a quarter of a lap of victory number 3. Jim, pick him up in turn number 4.
All right, we're here on number 4, and there he goes, a newlywed. And here to call the checkered flag, a guy that did another great job today, our chief announcer, Paul Page.
Doing a fantastic job is Al Unser. The checkered flag is waved. His hand is in the air. Al Unser, the winner of the 1978 500-mile race. Johnny Rutherford down the main straightaway. The white flag showing to him the car number 4 on the board. Now less than 2.5 miles to victory.
And what a fantastic race Johnny Rutherford has run today. The fans are on their feet cheering him on to victory. He's over to turn 2, Howdy.
Yes, once again, in a very select group of 3-time winners, he will join as he goes up the backstretch. Johnny Rutherford began to raise his hands off of the steering wheel, saluting the fans here on the last lap. He is about a third of a lap away from victory. Doug?
And here he drops down into turn number 3, slowing up maybe just a little bit, it seems, into the short chute. Darrell, take him home.
Great round of applause, a waving to him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they call a checkered flag for the winner of the world's greatest auto race, the voice of the 500, Paul Page.
Number 4, the Pennzoil Chaparral, his hands in the air. Johnny Rutherford wins the 1980 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
197 laps complete, working on 198. We look for them now at the head of the main straightaway, and we have them coming now. There's Al, there's Mo, here's Jerry Baker.
There are 3 cars to work their way around. Now, Unser's got by one of them. He got by Rocky Moran, so Moran is now stuck in the between. Now, there is Fittipaldi moving around Moran in number 2.
They've got slower traffic in front of them now. Al trying to get to the outside to pass Emo right behind him. Emo moves to the outside down in front of Howdy Bell. Moved to very close to that white line. They head for 3. Emo may have him, Larry.
They're side by side. Emo on the inside. Al caught in traffic. Goes high. They touch wheels. Al Jr. into the wall hard. Emerson Fittipaldi keeps on going. They touched wheels. Al Jr. into the wall, and Emerson Fittipaldi will lead them back to the yellow flag.
So, that's racing, I guess. We have a winner now, most probably. Moving by now, Emerson Fittipaldi, who touched wheels with Al Unser Jr., has assumed the lead, and he's passed you, Jerry Baker.
We're on the last lap.
Oh, this is what you pay your money for right here. Here's Buddy Lazier. It's about, maybe 30 yards, and there's Davy Jones. They settle it into the short chute, and Teddy Double's got a good look at it.
Buddy Lazier is in control, smoothly through turn number 2. Jones quickly behind, but Lazier in control, heading to 3.
A half lap to go indeed. It's Buddy Lazier's race to win or lose. And now about 30, 35, 40 yards. Nothing between first and second as they head to turn 4.
Buddy Lazier, the final turn of the day. He has it made. He's just got to keep it between the white lines. Here to call the finish, Bob Jenkins.
The 1996 Indianapolis 500 is won by Buddy Lazier.
Has but 1 lap to go, and the rookie will pick up the checkered flag. The white flag is out now. 1 more lap to go.
White flag for Juan Montoya. He is all by himself right now as he heads into turn number 1.
7 victories in part last year, 7 poles. He's about to win the biggest prize in his history. He is in the second turn.
Talk about what seems to be the perfect mesh between man and machine. This guy has been brilliant. That car has been near perfect all day.
Climbed into an IndyCar for the first time in March. It was a marriage that he became accustomed to very rapidly. Came within a couple of ticks to getting the pole. He's going to get the big prize, though, Bob Levy, the Indy 500.
Yeah, his target is right on target. Coming through for Juan Montoya. Heads for the checkered flag. Call the finish, Mike King.
He may be a rookie, but he is for real. Flashbulbs capture the finish as Juan Montoya wins the 84th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Now less than 2 miles away from winning the 90th Indianapolis 500.
More left-hand turns, and Marco Andretti has stretched the lead. He heads into the second corner.
From Belle Isle Park in Detroit, Michigan, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Surefire cure for the Indy 500 hangover. A double dose of the Verizon IndyCar Series this weekend at beautiful Belle Isle in Detroit. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark James. Welcome to complete coverage of the Duel in Detroit. Chevrolet Duel in Detroit, presented by Quicken Loans here on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. Happy to be joined in the booth by Nick Yeoman as the engines roar to life and the installation lap is underway. And Nick Yeoman, it's been broken down again and again and again. First time we've had the opportunity to do it. The improbable, the impossible became an ironclad fact when Alexander Rossi, I won't say he limped across the start-finish line underneath the twin checkers, but he didn't scream across it either to win the Indy 500.
Pretty amazing 4 or 5 day span it has been for the 24-year-old from California, our newest Indianapolis 500 champion. You're right, it was just an unbelievable, unpredictable finish. Last 10, 15 laps, I don't think anyone had any idea who was going to win that race, and I don't know you can ask for much more than that. As you mentioned, the way he made it on fuel for that final stint, and then to hear from Brian Herta and his engineer Tom German that was really kind of something they had been planning, 90 laps to the finish. It was just an unbelievable, masterful plan that worked, and Mark, what a win, and as I said, a life-changing moment for Alexander Rossi.
No Indy Lights here this weekend, so the focus is on the Verizon IndyCar Series. Practice session from 10:45 to noon Eastern. Then we'll go qualifying this afternoon at 3:25. Then a practice session tomorrow at 10:05. And race number 1 is set for 3 p.m. Eastern. Then Sunday morning qualifying for race number 2 is from 10:40 to 11:15. Again, all these times Eastern. And then, of course, the second race is set for 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. No rest for the weary for Alex Rossi. It's been a very busy week for him, Nick, and then just about the time that he maybe starts to catch up on his sleep a little bit, he gets to come and run a doubleheader.
Yeah, that's the one thing. It's great for all of us. It's great for the race fans. It's great for the drivers that maybe didn't have a great performance in the Indianapolis 500 to just 5 days later be back in the race car on the streets of Belle Isle here in Detroit to get another chance to see some racing action for fans and for media likes. But for Alexander Rossi, this has probably been one of the most exhausting weeks he'll ever have. Of course, as soon as he wins, they take a trip to New York. I know he's been to Chicago. He visited Texas Motor Speedway. A lot of media obligations that come with being the Indianapolis 500 champion. That is part of it. That is something I'm excited to hear from him sometime this weekend, Mark, of maybe how worn out he is, because it's asking a lot of a young man to have a life-changing experience of winning the biggest race in the world, have to travel all over the country, and then refocus, because now all of a sudden with that double points paying win at the Indy 500, he's kind of in the championship hunt. So to have to refocus, to gear back up and get back behind the wheel of a race car, that's a lot to ask. But it's been certainly an amazing week, and certainly one that I'm sure Alexander Rossi has never experienced in his life.
It is free pre-day here at Belle Isle, meaning admission to the facility is free to fans to come out and take a look-see at everything that's being offered. This raceway at Belle Isle Park is 2.35 miles in length, a 14-turn temporary street course. 70 laps, both the races, 164.5 miles. And again, it's a challenging course. It has evolved over the years. Changes have been made. And I'll tell you what a difference a year makes. Let's welcome in Jake Query, who's on pit road for us for this session. And Jake, no question that last year Mother Nature threw about everything she had at us in terms of weather here at Belle Isle. But, boy, if today is any indication, we are in for a phenomenal weekend weather-wise.
I remember a year ago, Mark, it was the hardest I think I've ever seen rain. When we left this track, we're going back to our hotel. Nick Yeoman was in the car with me. And one of the entrance ramps here, one of the many as you change from one interstate to the next in the Detroit area, I kid you not, had water pouring off of it onto the interstate below it. I'd never seen anything like it. This is quite the antithesis of that. Blue skies, it is an absolutely gorgeous day. 74 degrees, track temperature just now starting to climb its way into the low 80s, but there is not a cloud in the sky. It should be a tremendous weekend here for both of these races in Detroit. You were talking about Alexander Rossi. One note that comes, of course, one of the benefits of winning the Indianapolis 500. Keep in mind, Napa Auto Parts signed 10 days before the Indianapolis 500 to sponsor that 98 machine. He takes it to Victory Lane in Indianapolis, and Napa decided that they like that so much that Alex Rossi doesn't have to trade in that fire suit just yet. They're on board again this weekend for both these races here in Detroit, Mark.
Nick, couple of changes to the roster. Gabby Chavez, of course, placed in the 19 machine by Dale Coyne for the month of May. He holds on to that ride here for the doubleheader in Belle Isle. But a very late-breaking story. They have put Spencer Pigot in the number 20 machine, and on cue, Jake Query has Ed Carpenter.
Ed Carpenter talking with Spencer Pigot right now as they make some adjustments to that 20 machine. Let's begin with that, Ed, in terms of what it was about this young driver that impressed you and decided to put him in the car for you.
I mean, I think he's been impressive for a while coming through the Mazda Road to Indy, and then he got an opportunity to run a couple races this year with Ray Hall. We've been wanting to run the 20 car more, and just someone we look to that we want to get a look at for down the road, and he fits the bill for our type of guy here. I thought he did a really good job in May, especially recovering from that late week accident before qualifying. Indy's a hard place to recover from, but he's a professional. He's got a lot of talent, young guy that deserves to be here.
You obviously have a relationship as well with another guy that came through Lights and has been impressive, run for you before, in J.R. Hildebrand. Was he a possibility to use in this 20 machine as opposed to Pigot? Was that something you thought about?
For sure, JR is always a possibility. Just for this situation, this was the direction we went. But I always consider JR part of the team, and would always like to do more with him too. We just haven't been able to put all those pieces in place yet.
Lastly, let me ask you, Ed, I think a lot of people really appreciate the fact that here you have, as we call it, Team America, and Spencer Pigot obviously fits that bill. Is that by coincidence or is that by design?
I don't want to say it's by design because it wouldn't be totally accurate, but it's a bonus, but he's an up and comer. He's won in everything he's been in. He's really smart, really consistent. I think he's gonna be a really, really good pro.
Does somebody have to be 21 years old in order to drive the Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka machine, by the way?
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah. it probably is a good thing, but Spencer Pigot fits the bill. And again, this is a kid in the form of Spencer Pigot, Mark, that when you talk to him, his father is British, so he likes soccer a lot. As a matter of fact, Manchester United is his favorite club in terms of soccer, but he grew up, born in Pasadena, California, spent a lot of time in Florida, and I think a very bright future for Spencer Pigot. And he was really working hard with that scholarship money, of course, from the Indy Lights in trying to secure himself something. It enabled him, of course, to get those rides with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. He drove in St. Pete and then the 2 races in Indianapolis, and now has parlayed it into an opportunity and a very good ride at that in that Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka Machine, car number 20 for Ed Carpenter. Let's go down, actually, further down pit road to another guy who would like to make that same ascension through the ladder. Dave, you're with Neil Alberico.
Yeah, an opportunity to catch up with the driver in the Indy Lights series, number 22 for Carlin Racing, Neil Alberico. Off weekend, but you're still checking out some racing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be in the paddock and spend time and have those conversations that you don't normally get to have when you're busy, you know? So, no, it's good. You kind of pop around teams and familiarize yourself with as much IndyCar stuff as you can. That way, when you get that opportunity, it's nothing new.
It's all about knocking on doors and shaking some hands on some of these race weekends, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, rising stars, great to hang out with, and obviously congrats to Spencer Pigot with his new ride for the rest of the season with Eddie Carpenter Racing and teammates with Joseph. Looking forward to watching those guys duke it out this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about Spencer a little bit. How promising is that for you guys in the Indy Lights series and Pro Mazda series to look up and say, hey, look, there are drivers, champions that are getting opportunities in the Verizon IndyCar series?
Yeah, I mean, Indy Lights is growing every year with a new car even, and it's good to see those guys. I mean, Gabby, even with his ride, it's cool to see the young guys do well and kind of having those opportunities and chances that I'm hoping to, you know, I know James Hinchcliffe made a comment after qualifying at the 500 that, you know, hopefully in the next couple of years they'll see that burst of young drivers come up and that change happen. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
Let's talk about that. There are some 40-year-old guys out there, Tony Kanaan, Elio, Juan Pablo Montoya. They got to step out of the seat at some point, right?
Well, they're still doing obviously a great job, but I can't help but root for my generation and, you know, seeing Alex win last weekend and stuff like that. It's cool to see.
Next stop for you guys, Watkins Glen, is that right?
Yeah. Well, no, not.
You got to think ahead a little bit.
Yeah. No, we're testing at Mid-Ohio and a couple times the next 2 weeks, and we're actually at Road America with IndyCar, so that's when we'll rejoin the series.
Oh yeah, Road America. My apologies.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to it. We'd had a test there early in the season, and gosh, going to Canada Corner, we're pushing 180 miles an hour, so I'm sure IndyCar is going to be right up there, close to the 200 mile an hour range.
Quickly about your season, what would you like to see improve here the rest of the way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a rookie, your goal is obviously you want to win races, but just learn as much as you can and kind of set myself up for wins at the end of this year and finish strong. That way we can hit the ground running next year, hopefully with the Carlin guys again, and hopefully fight for the championship.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Dave.
Neil Alberico, driving number 22 Carlin Racing Machine in the Indy Lights series. Next time we'll see those guys on track, as he mentioned, Road America coming up in a couple of weeks. Mark James.
Yeah, Nick, it's been a pleasure for you and I being heavily involved in our shows with Indy Lights over the past several years to have an opportunity. We look at the timing and scoring here for the Verizon IndyCar series, and we remember a lot of these guys we saw for the very first time in an Indy Lights car. Spencer Pigot, for one, it's well documented. You talk about the difficulties of trying to climb the ladder financially. He made easy work of it. He kept winning the scholarship from F2000 all the way up.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, and good to see him get that opportunity, as you mentioned, with Ed Carpenter Racing to be a teammate with Joseph Newgarden. That's 2 Indy Lights champions. Newgarden won the title in 2011, and Pigot 1 year ago. And as you mentioned, you know, for drivers like Neil Alberico, for some of these young Lights drivers, we do anticipate those floodgates to open here very soon with some of those drivers that have been racing for many, many years to step down. But, you know, Mark, at the same time, guys like Juan Montoya, who we see making his way around this course here at Belle Isle, still very strong. Tony Kanaan's another one. TK said after the 500 last week, Mark, that he thought it was the best race that he's ever driven, even better than the one that he raced in 2013. Some of these, the older guards, the 40 clubs, still got a lot of good years left under their belt and certainly can contend for race wins for many years to come.
On board with Tony Kanaan and the multi-screen monitor that we have at our disposal here. Right now, Mikel Aloshin is finding the quick way. Sato, Hawksworth, Montoya, and Kanaan, your top 5. And some of the numbers for you: 8 sets of primary, 3 sets of alternates. What's available for the weekend? Push to pass. They'll have 10 activations for 16 or 15 seconds each for both races. And well, we saw it. You talk about push to pass. We saw not very judicious use of it in the Grand Prix of Indy. And folks, for those of you here at the racetrack, you see that LED display just behind the driver's head. You'll know when they're getting that extra boost because it flashes and you see that PP. And that's a great piece of technology that has been added to these cars in terms of getting the fans closer to the action. Yeah, it's a new bit of technology that they introduced a year ago on these Verizon IndyCar Series machines, and it's a fantastic way for those at the racetrack to know what position those drivers are in terms of during the race or maybe during this practice session. But as you mentioned, it will light up green and it will flash PP when they are on the push to pass. And you know, it's also great, Mark, I'll be honest, at the 500 a week ago, knowing who was in what position in the closing laps when things got so hectic and we saw so many leaders ducking in on pit lane. I think it was a really, really nice service for the 300,000 plus people that were at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to be able to look at those cars on the racetrack and figure out who's in the lead, because it gets so hectic in those fuel mileage battles. It's a nice piece of technology, and certainly for those at the racetrack on site, Mark, it is a huge benefit. Winners so far this season, of course, Juan Pablo Montoya started the season with a win at St. Petersburg. Scott Dixon captured the race at Phoenix. Pagenaud got red hot then, back to back to back. Long Beach, Barber, the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, then of course Alexander Rossi, the latest winner in the Verizon IndyCar Series. We'll update the points and more. Look forward to the next phase of this season. Going to get pretty busy as the weeks start to click off here in the Verizon IndyCar Series. But first, let's go back to pit road and Jake Query.
Mark, one thing to note here in Detroit, and I think at this particular venue at Belle Isle, this might be more applicable and more key than in other places, and that is pit road assignment. Now, typically in the Verizon IndyCar Series, we've talked about this over the course of the year, a lot of people ask, how do they determine who's at the front of pit road, who's in the middle, who's in the back, etc.? It is done by the qualifying order of the previous race, regardless of discipline, except for the Indianapolis 500. So therefore, the very first pit stall here on this pit road belongs to Simon Pagenaud. He was the pole sitter, of course, at the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Just behind him would be Charlie Kimball. Then you work your way back through the qualifying order. That is of some significance because this particular pit road, when you exit pit road, it is a very, very quick right-handed turn to work your way back onto the course here. So in the case of Pagenaud, as you're coming down, he's not going to have as long a time in that narrowing of the track, if you will, with his car perfectly set up to run that risk like we saw at Indianapolis, Dave, first with Ryan Hunter-Reay and Townsend Bell. You see the fact that you come in, you might have a clean pit stop, and when you exit, then all of a sudden some issues can arise if someone is exiting pit road. So, Dave, pretty key for Pagenaud to have that what seemingly would be a clean exit in front of him.
You know, it's nice to be able to attend the drivers' meetings each and every week, no matter where the Verizon IndyCar Series travels. Race control for the IndyCar Series invites us in to listen to the instructions and whatnot. And this morning's drivers' meeting, Brian Barnhart he went over and over. I mean, the hot topic was pit lane etiquette. And if you go back to what happened at the Indy 500, pit lane usage was a big question mark, as well as the term unsafe release. And that's exactly what happened with Ryan Hunter-Reay, as Hunter-Reay finished 24th last Sunday, got caught up in what was easily described as an unsafe release, caught up in one of the many pit incidents that we had in the Indy 500 that cost the day for a lot of drivers. A lot of good cars were involved in incidents last Sundays. So that, you know, to no surprise, unsafe release, pit lane etiquette. And when you talk about the 22 of Simon Pagenaud, he is at the very end of pit out, and it's almost at that right-handed turn at the exit of pit road. And Brian Barnhart as well was going on and on and on, telling the drivers that is not an area to cut across. That is Simon Pagenaud's pit area. Do not move around it. So again, pit lane etiquette. That was the stress so far in this morning's drivers meeting, and something that goes back to last Sunday, and something I think we're going to hear about throughout the course of the weekend here in Detroit.
And I'm sure that whatever Brian Barnhart said, they will take to heart, and a mistake like that will never, ever be made again.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's appreciate that, Dave, first. That's an interesting point because I was amazed, Mark, at how many pit lane incidents we saw last week at the Indianapolis 500. And it doesn't get a lot easier when you come to a place like Detroit because, as Dave talked about, man, it just funnels down at pit exit with the right-hander of turn number 1 and then quickly with a left-hander for turn number 2. There is not a lot of area to maneuver and jostle for position. You know, we go to Texas next weekend, Mark. You've got enough room to have a picnic out there on pit lane because there's plenty of room to move around. But I'm glad Brian Barnhart brought that up because there were way too many incidents for the safety of the guys down there on pit lane working, and then certainly for these drivers there where every point matters for guys trying to win the Indianapolis 500, trying to win a race here at Detroit. To have it thrown away on pit lane is very disheartening.
I still think with all the pressure on the teams in terms of going over the wall under a green flag condition, I think the pressure is put on others if you pit under caution. Not only do the guys going over the wall have to be wary of those coming in front or behind them, but the driver has to use the mirrors. But just as important, whoever's setting up on the pit box has to play the traffic cop. And if all three of those things don't happen in unison or in concert with one another, we see things like what happened with Ryan Hunter-Reay and Townsend Bell. And it really sticks in your craw, too, when it happens with a teammate.
Yeah, you're right. It's an orchestrated effort between the guy on the pit box, the driver in the race car, obviously, who has the ultimate control of when he's going to hit that gas pedal and leave, but also that right front tire changer. After he changes that tire, standing up, watching the fueler to make sure he knows when that car has been fueled and get the signal from the strategist or the engineer on the pit box. And unfortunately, Mark, we just saw it happen way too many times last weekend during the 500 of guys making contact. Will Power, he released and drove into the side of Tony Kanaan. He had to serve a drive-through penalty, really hurt his chances to win that race. And then, as you mentioned, the big one was Hunter-Reay and Townsend Bell. Both had race cars good enough to win the 500. Both were up front for the first half of that race, and that cost them, Mark. Those repairs to those automobiles put them a lap down, and they were never really able to get back in contention. Threw away a chance to win the Indianapolis 500 on pit lane.
Scott Dixon, a minute 16.9579. As I say that, Hinch goes to 1:16.92. Then Dixon, Newgarden, Castroneves, Kanaan, your top 5. Hunter-Reay is 6th. Power is 7th. Rossi is 8th. Montoya is 9th. Charlie Kimball is 10th. Too long ago, we mentioned that we were going to take a look at the point standings coming into this weekend. We had some great information from Pit Road that we wanted to share with you. So Simon Pagenaud stumbled a bit at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We found out earlier in talking to his race strategist, Kyle Boyer, he was missing a gear. Ran a fair amount of the race and was among the fastest without it. But when all is said and done, he leaves the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with a lead of 57 points. He leads Scott Dixon. Elio is 3rd in points, 68 back. Newgarden, 81 back. Hinch, 87 back. And Alexander Rossi, 89 points back. Then Munoz, Kanaan, Kimball, and Montoya. So Nick, double points this weekend. A lot of points up for grabs over a 3 to 4 week span. The tables could turn on the championship in a hurry over this 3 or 4 week period.
And then consider some of those drivers, Mark, that you didn't mention that are just on the outside of the top 10. Will Power is still trying to climb his way out of the hole of missing the opening race of the season at St. Petersburg. Graham Rahal has been way too hit or miss this year. Ryan Hunter-Reay has been the same. Obviously, his problems in the double paying 500 race to finish 24th was a big shot to his chances. But again, the point there that sticks out to me is Simon Pagenaud, Mark. I mean, he doesn't have a very good run in the Indianapolis 500 and is only able to muster a 19th place finish in a double points-paying race, and he still has a 57-point advantage. It goes to show you just how strong of a season that he's had so far with the pair of second-place finishes at St. Petersburg and Phoenix, and then 3 straight wins at Long Beach, Barber, and the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. It's been a pretty impressive season so far, and if he can get it back on track and pick up right where he left off, and kind of subtract the damage that was done for the 500, he is certainly still our championship favorite to this point.
And what does this mean for those who are trying to win a championship? 4 times a winner here has gone on to win the title. Will Power, race number 2 in 2014, Alex Zanardi in 98, Bobby Rahal in 92, and Emerson Fittipaldi won on a different circuit in downtown Detroit in 1989. Rahal's race was the first on Belle Isle back in 92, and it began a string running all the way through 2001 when Elio Castroneves won in kart. Then known as the IRL was here in 07 and 08, and then a hiatus for a couple of years before IndyCar came back in 2012, and since then winners have included Dixon, that improbable win by Mike Conway, Simon Pagenaud, Will Power, Elio, and then of course last year's winners. Crazy weather had a lot to do with all of this, but first win of the career for Carlos Munoz and Sebastian Bourdais. Those are the 2 guys that won the doubleheader a year ago.
Yeah, this race weekend has always kind of served up some upset winners. Some names always pop up that you just don't expect to see, and weather has a lot to do with that. As you mentioned, Carlos Munoz getting his first career Verizon IndyCar Series win 1 year ago in a weather-plagued event, but that's kind of how it goes. We're hoping so far today, as Jake Query talked about the open of the show, beautiful day for everyone that's making their way out to this racetrack this weekend. Today and tomorrow, in fact, look absolutely fantastic. The weather for tomorrow, race number 1, looks absolutely tremendous. Sunday still kind of up in the air, but Mark, as we've seen in the Midwest, we saw it, the entire month of May, it seemed like it was going to rain more than it actually did. There was chances of pop-up showers for the 500 on Sunday, and we never saw a drop during the race. So certainly the weather's always a factor when you come to Detroit here, but we got our fingers crossed, and so far it looks like we're in store for a great weekend.
Graham Rahal, Marco Andretti, a top timing and scoring now. Will Power 3rd quick. Hinch has slipped to 4th. Scott Dixon 5th. Newgarden, Castroneves, Canan, Munoz 9th, Hunter Ray 10th. Rossi 11th. Montoya 12th. Kimball 13th. Sato 14th. Hawksworth 15th quick. 16th, Mikel Voloshin. 17th, Simon Pagenaud. 18th, Connor Daly. 19th, Gabby Chavez. 20th quick is Chilton. 21st is Spencer Pickett, who's now in the 20 machine for Ed Carpenter Racing. And 22nd quick is Sebastian Bourdais. 10, the most laps turned so far here at picturesque Belle Isle in Detroit.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at Belle Isle, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Practice continues in preparation for the Chevrolet Duel in Detroit. I'm Mark Janes, Nick Yeoman, Dave First, Jake Query, all here to bring you all of the action of this first practice session, which runs until the top of the hour. You have the mayor of Hinchtown, and Nick, Elio Castroneves may very well be the mayor of Belle Isle. Of course, his first win coming in 2000. He went back-to-back. He's won here 3 times, in fact. Elio has led 247 laps here. Juan Montoya is second all-time with 152, and special place for Elio Castroneves in his career. He always enjoys racing here at Belle Isle, and nothing would mean more to him than to get the captain a win in a race that Roger Penske, quite frankly, revived, and an area in Belle Isle that he revived.
As you mentioned, 3 times Elio Castroneves has climbed the fence here at Detroit in 13 starts. He's only finished outside of the top 10 4 times. He's only started outside of the top 10 3 times. So Elio certainly has a knack for this place. 903 total laps that he has ran around Belle Isle Park here in Detroit. It is a racetrack that is near and dear to him, as you mentioned. The first sight that we got to see of Elio climbing the fence was right here in Detroit. So it's been a great racetrack for him. And as you mentioned, a guy that needs a win. It's been over a year since we've seen Elio Castroneves win a race. So I'm sure for he and for his teammate Will Power, for some of those Penske drivers really needing something to go right, this could be the weekend. This is such an important weekend, as you mentioned, for the motorsports industry, for the motor industry, and then certainly for Roger Penske himself.
50th anniversary of Roger Penske at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. All of the wins there. Had the privilege and honor of driving the pace car to start the Indianapolis 500. And little did he know at the time those would probably be the lone bright spots in an otherwise forgettable month of May in terms of the Indianapolis 500.
There was one. Elio Castroneves, about midway point of the race, Mark, last weekend, started charging to the front, got to the lead, looked like he was going to be a contender, and then had that incident with J.R. Hildebrand where Hildebrand just kind of mistimed a judge, got into that rear wing assembly of Elio. I know J.R. felt horrible about it, and Elio, Mark, was quite hot. Wasn't too happy about that situation and the incident between he and J.R. Hildebrand, but the rest of Team Penske, as you mentioned, really an afterthought. Juan Montoya, the first out, as he makes a mistake. That car got loose out of turn number 2. He slapped the wall and ended his day 33rd. You mentioned the issues with Simon Pagenaud's engine. They were down a cylinder. The hottest driver in the sport wasn't able to keep that momentum rolling, and then Will Power, with the pit road penalty, found himself towards the back of the pack and could just never get his way back up front to contend. It was a very un-Penske-like Indy 500, Mark, and I know that had to be a tough pill to swallow for Roger and that entire organization.
On a personal note, you were able to shed the fire suit and call the action from turn 2. That's quite a perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very cool perspective. Some of the greatest moments in 500 history have happened there in turn 2, and it was an honor to be a part of the crew. And we saw a lot of good action there in turn 2.
Well, one of the legends of the sport for sure. Glad that he's still around it on a regular basis. And we know Dave First, when he's not at the racetrack, he dials us up on IndyCar.com. Say good morning to Dario Franchitti for us.
Yeah, Dario Franchitti, when he's not at the racetrack, you're a big listener to the IndyCar radio network, aren't you?
Yes, I am when I'm back in Scotland. Great way to follow practice and, in the races sometimes. There was a couple of times this year I haven't been able to get the races on TV where I've been, so I've been listening to you guys.
We'll get you some hero cards autographed a little bit later if that's okay.
I'd appreciate it. Can I get them personalized?
Absolutely. Well, I don't know. That's going to cost you extra. Hey, obviously you're the driver coach for Max Chilton a little bit. He just came in after doing a couple laps. What did he say on the radio?
I can't repeat that. He was a little shocked by the bumps. I was trying to prepare him yesterday during track walk just how bumpy this place is. I explained to him it had actually been resurfaced and they'd spent a load of money making it somewhat smoother, but this is a shock to anybody who comes from that European background because there's not many street courses, and the ones that's Will Power just arriving, by the way, the ones that are very smooth. So this is quite a shock, and he just needs laps right now. He just needs a bit more time in the car and just try to figure out how to get this car to work over the bumps and how to float the car over the bumps.
Michaela Lotion is sideways in turn 4 right now, and that has brought out the red flag, so everyone has made their way back to pit road as our conversation with Dario Franchitti continues. So you're a former champion here at Detroit some 17 years ago now.
I was young.
But you have fond memories of this place, I know.
I do. I love this track, absolutely. Apart from that one time that Dix reversed into me when we were going for the championship after he'd spun, we still are.
Well, that worked out okay for Tony Kanaan, who won that race. So.
Yeah, that's what TK was saying yesterday. No, I love it here, and I think Roger Penske and his whole crew have just done a wonderful job. Really first class, and it's always fun to come back to Belle Isle, isn't it? It's such a cool place to have a racetrack, and as I say, to see the changes that have been made here, to see what a friendly event it is, it's a lot of fun.
It's much nicer when it's dry and sunny.
Yeah, last year wasn't great, was it? I'm hoping that rain's going to hold off on Sunday. But no, it's lovely. What do they call it? Chamber of Commerce weather?
This is excellent, huh?
Yeah, it's stunning.
Hey, you are obviously a former veteran of driving for Michael Andretti, and you know Brian Herta very well. And to see those guys win the Indy 500, what did that mean for you?
I would have been happier if it was one of our Ganassi.
Sure, yeah.
But no, Will's very noisy today. Anyway, no, I was really happy for them. Really happy for Michael's put a lot of effort in, and as has Brian, just to keep things going there. And Herta's the master of the strategy, isn't he? And it was just to see that smile on his face. You know, the last time they did it, obviously 2011 with Dan, but teaming up with Michael again, it's like getting the old band back together. And it was a real feel-good story there, because, as I say, the struggles they've had to put that whole program together. Nice to see them be rewarded.
You're obviously a 3-time Indy 500 champion. What is Alexander Rossi going through right now? Because he spent the last week doing a media tour in New York, Dallas. He's going to go back to New York again next week. How difficult is that?
I bet he's tired. Right now. That was always the hard bit, was coming to that next race and being just worn out from it. But trust me, it's a great feeling, and you really don't care. You know, you're so happy that you have won the 500, and I hope he realizes what he and his team have achieved together, because that is something very, very special at any time, but especially that 100. It's it means a lot to everybody in this pit lane and everybody that follows the sport. So I hope he appreciates it.
It's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have, isn't it?
Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, man.
Dario Franchitti coaching up Max Chilton down here along pit road. And Max, as he came in, he's running 20th right now. Could not believe how bumpy Detroit is. And Dario got on the radio and said, "Son, welcome to Detroit."
Class act Dario Franchitti for sure. Champion, sportsman, all of those things. And again, thrilled that most weekends you can find him at the racetrack. And what a huge benefit for Max Chilton to have those words of wisdom at his disposal on a regular basis.
Yeah, and he admitted that, especially at the 500, where Max, with his Formula One European background, they just don't race on ovals over in Europe. Very, very, very rarely. So for him to get a chance, to spend a year in Indy Lights and then to have a guy like Dario Franchitti on the pit box, that's a calming voice, and one that I could listen to all day, Mark, because Dario, a sportsman, he's done it all. He's accomplished everything there is to accomplish in open wheel racing here in America, and any question that Max Chilton could possibly have, Dario's probably going to have an answer. So very, very valuable for young Max Chilton to have Dario on that pit box.
This session rolls along, and Nick, you need to maximize the time. As we have gone through these road and street course events, we haven't seen a lot of takers in the early practice sessions, but today, given that you're qualifying for race number 1 at 3:25 this afternoon, there's not a lot of sitting and waiting going on right now.
Yeah, that's the dynamic of what I really, really do like about these doubleheader. The only doubleheader weekend now that we have at Detroit is that I think, as you mentioned, every minute that you have to get on the racetrack is valuable, because most of the sessions, there's something to play for. There's something on the line with 2 qualifying sessions and 2 races. So that makes this 75-minute practice session very, very valuable. They will get a practice session tomorrow morning before going racing at 3 o'clock Eastern, but that session is only 30 minutes. So, Mark, in terms of any major overhauls, major changes that you want to make, things you want to experiment on, this is really all you get. You don't get a chance to test here at Detroit because this is a street course that is set up and torn down. So you kind of got to learn on the fly, and for drivers like Max Chilton, Spencer Pigot, Connor Daly, that are right now struggling, all 18th or worse on the speed charts, I think that shows, Mark. This is not a racetrack that I think rookies can necessarily show up at and expect a lot of big things.
You've heard Dave first. You've heard Jake Query. I want to give you the rest of our lineup this weekend. We'll have Michael Young joining us for all of the action. Also, one of our pit reporters this weekend will be Katie Hargan, and of course, our driver analyst will be Davey Hamilton. And Nick and Jake, for purposes of qualifying and the doubleheaders, will be out on the course covering that for you. So that will leave Michael Young, Dave First, and Katie Hargan to handle all of the activity on pit road. We continue to move toward the top of the hour when this session will checkers, and we were talking about Elio Castro Neves and his prowess here at Belle Isle, and Nick's speed starting to climb a little bit, at times we should say. Elio is P1 with Ray Hall, Power, Newgarden, and Andretti the top 5, and Nick, let's face it, got to give a tip of the cap to all of the folks at Honda and how hard they worked. They made folks set up and take notice at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 500.
Yeah, and the overwhelming feeling that I get and that a lot of people within the sport get that is that bounce back that we saw from Honda at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 500 is not going to be a flash in the pan. A lot of the folks at Honda and I think even the folks at Chevrolet expect that the ground that they've made up is here to stay. For those watching online, IndyCar.com, maybe on Facebook, getting a good chance to see James Hinchcliffe make his way around the course. Here's Will Power flashing into frame as he makes his way down. They call it a front stretch, Mark. It's not a whole lot of a front straightaway here. But, yeah, I mean, you got to tip your cap to the hard work that is done by all the folks at Honda for the Andretti camp to be so strong. I mean, they had 5 cars that I think were all capable of winning. James Hinchcliffe, Mikhail Aloshin, Oriol Serbia, the 3 cars that Schmidt-Peterson had out there were all contenders. So it was a nice bounce back. And quite honestly, Mark, it made for one of the most competitive Indy 500s we've seen for many years. I think there were quite honestly 20 cars that if you put them at the front of the field, they were going to be tough to pass. Track position meant so much, and Honda deserves a lot of credit for the ground that they've made up here in about a year's time where really they've been lacking.
Sometimes when the 500 is over, you're focused on so many aspects of it. You look up at the leaderboard and think, my goodness, I had no. The guy that I think that jumped off time against scoring at me, Charlie Kimball. And again, Charlie's no longer a flash in the pan. This has been a really solid year for Charlie Kimball. In fact, he's completed all but 1 lap. We'll talk more about Charlie Kimball in just a moment. Jake, I saw him having breakfast at Charlie Brown's 2 days ago in Speedway on Main Street. Now you've caught up with A.J. Foyt here in Detroit.
A.J. Foyt is watching over his team right now that's working on Takuma Sato's car. And A.J., I want to begin with this. I saw you on television saying how happy you were to be there to see the 100th Indianapolis 500. Now that it's, I think all of us had an anticipation. Was there one moment that was the most special to you over the course of last weekend?
Well, it was nice to be there for the race. It was, glad to be there for the 100 race, so that was a big thing.
I know that your relationship with Tony Holman was a very special one when you were a young man and you were first in Indianapolis. What do you think he would have thought if he could have seen that massive crowd and the celebration for the 100? Well,
the crowd back in the early days where it used to be, so he'd been real happy to make a turnaround. But the last 3 or 4 years, the races have been very good there anyway, so that's what brings the people in.
One thing that who am I to disagree with A.J. Foyt on anything, but I've heard you say a lot that the Indianapolis 500 made A.J. Foyt and not the opposite. I think there's a little bit of truth to the fact that the Indianapolis 500 was also made by a guy from Houston winning 4 Indianapolis 500s.
Yeah. Well, everybody in the world knows if you win the Indy 500, but I've won a lot of 500-mile races, and like I said, that's where I'm noted for more than any other race I won. And so that's what really made me was Indianapolis, and I really enjoyed going there every year.
All right, before we talk about Takuma and Jack and their cars this weekend, I do have to know, you're wearing a 500 winner's ring. A guy that's won 4 of them, which ring do you wear?
Well, this one got all 4 wins.
There you go. You take all in one, right?
Right. Yeah, we got, the other rings too, and one that Kenny won for me in '99. And the only reason I'm wearing it, I didn't want to leave it in no hotel here, and I had it at Indy. They wanted me to bring it. That's the only reason I wear it. I normally don't wear no rings.
He's got more rings than the Olympics, for that matter. How are the cars this weekend, and is it difficult from a team standpoint to have to go from an oval and now prepare for a street course?
Well, we got everything set up for a street course, and so it's not that bad at all.
Overall on the season, I thought Jack had a good run in the month of May, and the fact that went out there and ran a nice solid race and brought home that 41 car, I was impressed by it.
Well, he did a good job. Only thing bad, he slid through the pits there at the end, cost him about 5 spots. That's mistakes you can't make there.
AJ, I'll let you get back to work, but it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we certainly wish you the best of luck this weekend.
All right, thank you.
That's AJ Foyt, the owner, of course, for AJ Foyt Racing, ABC Supply, that's been a great sponsor, and this is a good venue for them as well, Mark, because keep in mind that ABC Supply company that's been involved in the Verizon IndyCar Series with that team for a while, based in Wisconsin, so not far away. They'll have some sponsors that'll be able to make the drive over here and watch that 41 and that 14 machine this weekend.
And they bring a ton of associates to the racetrack every weekend. I've done some hospitality work with them over the years, and they're a great group of rabid race fans. Nick, we're watching Alex Rossi, the 500 champion, fling this thing around. He's finding all the rough spots, and he's testing just how wide this course is at Belle Isle.
Boy, you are not joking. He is on it and sliding that race car all over this very tricky course here at Belle Isle Park. He's the newest guy that, as AJ Foyt would put, that the Indianapolis 500 might have just made famous. The young American, 24-year-old Napa Auto Parts back on that car for a second race. Good to see that. And as you mentioned, we've been watching him on our multi-screen monitor, and certainly those watching at home on IndyCar.com or on Facebook on the IndyCar stream. They're seeing the rear end of that car slide out and bounce around this tricky racetrack.
Currently 14th quick. Back to our conversation about Charlie Kimball before we talk to AJ Foyt. His worst finish this season, 12th, 3 times inside the top 10. Well, 10th or better. 9th at Barber, a 5th at Indianapolis, and his average starting position is 8, and his averaging finishing position is 9th. It's been a good year for Charlie Kimball, and has done so very quietly.
I always have a really hard time evaluating Charlie Kimball because on one hand, Mark, I look at it and I say, well, he's driving for Chip Ganassi. So in all honesty, he should probably be winning races, multiple races per year. But then you watch him and he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
No.
I think he's got a little Scott Dixon in him in the sense that, he has a quiet day, and all of a sudden, as you mentioned, you look up and he's running just inside or just outside of the top 5. So Charlie's a guy that, it's all about taking steps. It's all about making progress every single year. Was finally able to knock down that big door by getting that win a couple years ago at Mid-Ohio. I know Charlie would love to be winning races just about every weekend as we see a squirrel making his way across the racetrack, Mark. That's not the smartest thing to be doing. But for Charlie Kimball, he's had a really good season, really quiet but solid season so far this year. And I know that's what Chip Ganassi's looking for.
90 starts for Charlie in his career coming into this weekend. His 13th top 5 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so that translates into his 37th top 10, and he's led 15 races, and has the number 83 back on that car this weekend after that number change for the month of May tied to that sponsorship. Castro Neves continues P1, then Power, Pagano, Andretti, and Dixon. I see Marco at the top of the timing and scoring here. Simon Pagano just went to P1, and we've already talked about it with Rossi and, of course, Townsend Bell and the dust-up he had with teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay and Elio on pit road. Just a really solid month for Andretti Autosport as a whole, Nick, and they so sorely needed that.
Yeah, they really did need it, and it was, and it ended with a pair of victories. Of course, they went to victory lane in the Freedom 100 with Dean Stoneman winning a thrilling race, winning that race by 24 10,000ths of a second, and then for 2 days later for them to have such a strong showing with Ryan Hunter-Reay and Townsend Bell up front all day. Marco started to charge before they had a bit of a miscommunication with some tires on a pit stop. As you mentioned, Carlos Munoz found his way to a second-place finish, and then the big win. Cool to hear Dario talk about Dario Franchitti, who Dave first talked with moments ago, talk about the old band and getting them back together. And I'm sure as much as he would have loved for his employer, Chip Ganassi, to pick up another Indy 500 win, very special to see Brian Herta and Michael Andretti pair back up and to go to victory lane with that 98 car, that car number that Dan Weldon took to victory lane in 2011. Very, very special, and that's the thing that's always amazed me, Mark, about this IndyCar paddock is it is a brotherhood. A lot of these guys that have been a part of this sport for many, many years, they've all worked with each other, they've all been teammates, they've all driven for each other at one point or another, and it makes it awful special. A lot of people happy to see Michael Andretti and have such a bounce-back weekend 1 week ago.
No matter where you are, what you're doing, if you go back to that team that Andretti Green Racing had, with Dario Franchitti and the late Dan Weldon and Tony Kanaan and Brian Herter. For instance, earlier this year, on race day morning during the final warm-up, we had Kim Green with Green Savory Promotions, who was the Green in Andretti Green Racing, for those of you that don't remember. And I asked him about that period of time. And the look that came across his face was one I will never forget. And one of the guys that we just mentioned, the team owner, a winner of the Indianapolis 500, is with Dave Hurst.
Yeah, and Alexander Rossi just brought the Honda Auto Parts Honda for Andretti Autosport back onto pit road, making some adjustments on the right rear. Brian, we're going to ask Alexander later on how his week went. How was your week after winning the Indy 500?
Oh, it was great. You know, I mean, it's always a nice couple days after win, and after that win, obviously, it's a little more special. But I'm really grateful to be here in Detroit racing, and this is what we love doing. So it's fun to get everybody get back together at the racetrack and get focused again and get back to doing what we love.
Not only is everybody back, Napa Auto Parts also back this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, just they joined us for Indy, and so happy to have them back here in Detroit. Hopefully, hopefully we can find a way to keep working together with them. But so far we're enjoying being back here in Detroit. The car's working well. Alexander's first time here, so we're learning the track. We're making adjustments, trying to make some improvements here. Heading into, we only have this one practice session before qualifying, so we don't have a lot of time to get it all figured out.
How bumpy is this race course?
It's very bumpy. It's very bumpy. Definitely caught his attention on the first couple laps, but it's the same bumps. It's this is the track we have to race on. Same for everybody. I used to love driving here. It's a fun track. It's tough to pass, so qualifying's at a premium. So that's what we're trying to focus on, is giving him a car that we can go out and qualify well this afternoon with.
Last thing, it's a good problem to have, but how exhausted is Alexander after the week he had doing the media tour in New York and Dallas? Now he's back.
I think he's happy to be back in the car because nobody can ask him any questions right now.
Well, until he gets out of the car, and we're going to do that. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. He's done such a great job, not just obviously in the race, but since the race, the interviews I've seen and the way he's handled himself, just, for somebody who just doesn't have that experience, is phenomenal. He's doing great.
Very impressive. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Brian Herta, not only with Herta Autosport, but Andretti Autosport as well. And yeah, this media tour actually continues next week after the second race here Sunday in Detroit. He's heading back to New York to do some more talk shows. So that Indy 500 Champions media tour will continue next week, guys.
Not to say you're going to learn a lot if you're catching us for these sessions, Nick Yeoman, but Dave Hurst and Jake Query through the first hour or so of the show, between owners and drivers, have covered 10 wins at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the Indy 500.
I was thinking about that too. Got a couple polls there with Ed Carpenter that we talked to. Of course, as you mentioned, Brian Herta goes to victory lane twice now as a car owner, and then and quite a few Indy 500 wins between Dario Franchitti and AJ Foyt, of course.
Great stuff, guys. Helio Castroneves, Simon Pagino, Scott Dixon, Will Power, Ray Hall, your top five. And do want to let you know, we'll go until about 5 minutes past the hour. The session started a bit late, so we're going to finish it late. I'm going to give these teams all of the time that was allotted to them as they get set to go qualifying at 3:25 Eastern. The Chevrolet Duels in Detroit.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber. Which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires. We make champions. Whatever you drive a Firestone.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at Belle Isle, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Mark James, Nick Yeoman, the broadcast booth, just feet off of the outside retaining wall here at Belle Isle. Will Power, Helio Castroneves, Simon Pagino, James Hinchcliffe, and Scott Dixon, your top five. Let's go back to pit road and Dave Hurst.
Yeah, an opportunity to catch up with Bruce Martin of Fox Sports Radio, Autosport.com, Speed Sport Magazine. Am I missing anything else, Bruce?
A few here and there. We'll work for money.
Welcome back to Detroit. I know you always look forward to coming back to Belle Isle, fresh off the Indianapolis 500. Just your thoughts and impressions coming off the 100th running of the Indy 500.
I don't think that they could have staged it any better. They had a sellout crowd, 350,000 fans. The weather cooperated. There was a buzz. The fans all seemed to enjoy it. I know some people would have liked to have seen a fight to the finish rather than a fuel mileage race, but you didn't know who was going to win. As the last 10 laps were winding down, you didn't know who was going to end up winning this race. Even on the final lap, you didn't know if Alexander Rossi was going to make it all the way around for the checkered flag. A fresh-faced winner for the Indy 500 in its 100th running, that's just what this series needs.
I was going to ask you, and obviously an American winning too, and that's never a bad thing for an American-based racing series. Did the promoters, did the 500, the series get everything out of that event that they could have? I would say probably yeah.
The only thing, like I said, that they could have probably have gotten that they didn't get would have been a real fight to the finish like we had in 2014 and even last year when Juan Montoya won it. But that's just the way the race plays out. If the yellows don't fall in a certain way, you're going to have guys that are going to try to gamble on fuel mileage. And considering that Alexander Rossi was able to start that strategy with about 95 laps left in the race and maintain it, that's pretty tough to do. And I know Brian Herta was coaching him all the way. This race will always be remembered. If the 85 race was Danny Sullivan's spin and win, the 2016 race was the clutch and coast.
Where does the series go from here? We all talk about a bounce from it, and there's a buzz, and everyone's talking about the IndyCar series. Where does this series go from here, you think, Bruce?
I think that they really need to show what a great day they had at Indy and play it up like, and now these guys are coming to your city. If they can do that, I think that they can get a little bit of a draft off the success that they had at the Indy 500. The other thing that's going to be important is if they can keep Alexander Rossi in this series. I know now that a lot of the teams in Formula One that may not have been that interested in him are probably going to show a lot of interest. That's going to be a little bit of a storyline that we're all going to have to follow here for the rest of the season, but he seems to be focused on winning the championship. And the beautiful thing about his victory at Indy is look where he's at in the standings now. That double points really benefited him, and now he's a legitimate championship contender.
Debris out on the race course in a couple of spots, and that has brought out the red flag right now in this practice session with roughly, let's call it 20 minutes remaining here. I thought it was interesting. I talked to Rossi at the victory banquet on Monday, and the thing, obviously, outside of winning the Indy 500, the thing he was most excited about was the fact he was 6th in points, and he's going to make a championship run. And ultimately, I mean, Formula One or whatever his future may hold, put that on hold, if you will. He's all about winning this championship right now.
And that's a good sign. Here's a rookie driver that has come in here. And how long has it been since we've had a rookie driver with a legitimate chance to win both the Indy 500 and the championship? You may have to go all the way back to 2000 when Juan Montoya, well, Juan won the kart title in 99. He won the Indy 500 in 2000, didn't win the championship in 2000. But when you look at other drivers, I'm talking about rookies now, not veterans. We've had veterans that have been able to master both. For a 24-year-old kid from California, the fact that he moved to Europe when he was 16 to become a Formula One driver, he said he had to grow up in a hurry. And you can see the maturity level in this guy. He's not your average 24-year-old. He seems to be extremely focused, very mature. And I really think that with that team that he's got, the momentum they have, it's going to be interesting through these races through June to see how well he's able to maintain it.
I would agree with that. He is certainly, he's 24 going on 44, the way he just thinks through everything. And we'll see if he makes a run at a championship. What are you going to be writing about this weekend?
Just a lot of it's going to be on Rossi's weekend, Rossi's week. He's all of a sudden now a household name. He went to New York, did all these events. It'll be interesting to see what the ratings are coming into this race. I know that your station back in Indianapolis had a huge rating, 33.6. That is an incredible rating for one city to have for the Indianapolis 500. Now, here's what I'm going to leave with. As much work as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar put into promoting the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500, they were successful. I honestly think if they put in the same type of work for the 101st, they may not sell it out, but they could come pretty close to having a pretty big crowd next year. And I really think that they've kind of shown themselves what they can do if they really put their mind to it.
Big bounce. I think we expect to see it in the 101st Indy 500. Great to chat up, Bruce Martin. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Bruce Martin, of course, writes for Fox Sports Radio, Autosport.com, Speed Sport Magazine. And, the TV numbers back in Indianapolis, Mark Janes, they were pretty good. But I'm convinced here's what people were doing. They had the TV on so we could watch it live on RTV6 back in Indianapolis, but they turned down the volume and turned up IndyCar radio.
Well, and again, Dave, you posted on Twitter quickly after that announcement was made. You suggested that people do just that, and considering that's the station that you're the sports director of, we appreciate you having our back, as they say, in that regard. But let me congratulate you, Brad Brown, and Michael Grady, your entire staff. That was an incredible month for all of us, and certainly for the folks at RTV6. Turn 9 is where a debris flag was being displayed. There was also a piece of debris in the groove between 4 and 5. And, Nick, we saw a seam where it looked like a little of, that material they put in there to fill that seam up might have started to work its way out a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the James Hinchcliffe seal, but it appeared to be something similar to that. And that's one of the big challenges that you have when you come to these, not permanent racetracks. When you set up a street course event, is that, man, unless that racetrack is just perfectly sealed and paved in every little portion, these race cars create so much downforce. They just like to suck anything that might be loose or not completely bolted down to the racetrack, and that's one of the challenges that you have. But as you mentioned, a couple different spots that the Homatro safety crew needed to go out and visit to clean up around the corners around this Belle Isle Park course here in Detroit, Mark.
Well, the mild winters help here too.
Oh boy,
there's no snow or ice or anything up here in Detroit in the wintertime.
Yeah, I can't imagine. They certainly have some brutal. I mean, we're used to it being Midwesterners as well. That doesn't help. What do they say? Up further north you go, you've got 2 seasons, summer and construction, or the vice versa. I guess it is winter and construction. Because just these winters will take quite a havoc, quite a toll on the roads around.
One of the track volunteers, the first year we went to Edmonton, I was talking to him. He said, "I'm excited. I'm excited that you all are here for our 3 weeks of summer here in Edmonton." So, the farther north you go, certainly. Let's talk a little bit about Tony Kanaan. Awfully frustrated when the month came to a close. He was the driver analyst for Dave and the folks at RTV6, the ABC affiliate. And I think one of my favorite moments of their post-race coverage was when Dave was talking to TK, and they just talked to a very, very frustrated and aggravated Carlos Munoz. Felt like he had the car to win and probably did. And he said, I will win the Indy 500 someday. And paraphrasing here, they came back to Tony and Dave on the set, and Tony said, "Yeah, it took me 12 starts to get my first one, so calm down a little bit. I don't feel sorry for you." But this guy, Nick, is getting ready to make his 256th consecutive start. He's a triathlete away from the racetrack and certainly an Ironman on it, no question.
Yeah, consecutive starts. That's the important word there. It's just amazing the streak Tony Kanaan has been on, and still very, very competitive. It's been a pretty darn good year all told for Tony Kanaan. In 6 races, just once has he finished outside of the top 10 mark, and that was in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, that I don't think we can necessarily label his fault. As his teammate Scott Dixon kind of moved up the racetrack heading into turn number 1, he got squeezed into Sebastian Bourdais. So all told, it has been a very good season for Tony Kanaan. 9th at St. Petersburg, 4th at Phoenix, 6th at Long Beach, 8th at Barber, and then 4th a week ago in the Indianapolis 500. That is just a really, really solid season for Tony Kanaan. He sits in 8th. And again, Mark, he's a part of this 40 club. None of us know exactly how much longer he wants to run or how much longer that he will run, how much longer he'll have those opportunities. But, Mark, I'll be honest with you. With what I saw from Tony Kanaan and some of the moves that he made on restarts, TK still got it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he still wants to do one-offs at the Indianapolis 500 for another decade. I think there's going to be a car owner that puts him in a race car because he has just got that place figured out so much. And, only one win to show for it, as you mentioned. The Speedway hasn't always been kind to Tony Kanaan, but just a tremendous run that he had last Sunday to put that car up front coming from the 18th starting position. And if the fuel mileage gods wouldn't have played in, Mark, TK would have been right up there dueling for the win.
We have a lot of wildly popular drivers at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but I maintain nobody sends a charge of electricity through that crowd when they take the lead better than Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. I loved when they introduce the drivers. It's such a cool pre-race festivity when they walk up, 3 drivers at a time in the 11 rows. And I love to pay attention, Mark, to the pop that you hear from the crowd when those drivers get introduced. We're starting to see some drivers like James Hinchcliffe, Joseph Newgarden starting to get louder and louder ovations, but it is still a pair of Brazilians that just, electrify the crowd. They all get to their feet to cheer. When Helio Castroneves and Tony Kanaan get introduced at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it is something to see. The fans love those two, and as you mentioned, they put on quite a show. Both had a chance to win that race, and I think, as we got an issue, Mikhail Aleshin, Mark, has gotten sideways and has tagged a tire barrier and ripped off the left rear pod on that rear wing assembly. So issues for the Russian driver.
Yeah, Mikhail Aleshin had been 10th quick before he made that contact with the wall, and there's a pretty sizable piece of debris lying up against the wall in that portion of the race course. And it looked like that a good chunk of the tire barrier was able to absorb that blow, and that's going to bring a red flag out. And Nick, we get an opportunity to look at the replay now.
Yeah, he tagged it pretty good. A big part of the racetrack clogged up with debris. We saw the Indy 500 champion Alexander Rossi have to drive through that. But again, just got a little hot coming in. The rear end of that race car stepped out on Aleshin and tagged that tire barrier. It sticks out there for a reason because that's a high-speed corner, and you really don't want to hit those concrete walls. But, Mark, you cannot have problems there and expect to make it out. As we mentioned, Mikhail Aleshin had an issue earlier in this practice session where he got sideways in turn number 4. Was very fortunate, Mark, where he slid that cart, came to a stop right in the middle of the racetrack and didn't hit the wall. This time, though, for the Russian driver, not as lucky.
That incident going into turn number 7, one of the more technical portions of this course. That's the portion of the race course that you will be calling. It is a right-handed turn, and it's not real wide because there are those tires to the high side for that very reason, because guys have a tendency to carry too much speed into that portion of the course. Then a little kink back to the right before a hard left-hander into turn number 8, then a bit of a short stretch to turn 9. Then you're really on the binders as you make your way between 9 and 10, and then about 100 feet of racetrack or less before you get into the hard right turn that's turn number 11. This course is extremely tricky, and I think the fastest portion of it is that portion that Mikhail Aleshin just had the incident in. That's coming off of 6 along the water there, and until you get to turn number 7, you can carry a lot of speed on that straightaway.
This is a racetrack that is not kind to front wings and rear wing assemblies, Mark. I think this place, maybe more than any racetrack that we go to, I think even more than St. Petersburg or Long Beach, precision is the word that I'm looking for, because there are so many places where this racetrack can jump out and bite you if you're not absolutely accurate and on it for every single lap. So red flag, as you mentioned, out for the Russian driver Mikhail Aleshin. He was day first, able to drive that Honda back to pit lane, and now he's in front of you.
Well, you can't say that he wasn't pushing it in this session here this morning on the streets of Belle Isle. Already they have replaced the rear wing assembly. That was pretty quick. Question is, if you do that already here in the first practice session, how many more rear wing assemblies do you have for the rest of the weekend? Hopefully for Mikhail's sake, we don't find out. Maybe that's the only damage he has through the course of the weekend. I doubt that, but we shall see. 10th quick so far. They've taken off the rear cowling as well. They're going to make some springs, some damper adjustments as well. And what do we have left, guys? 10 minutes or so in this practice session, so expect to see Mikhail Aloshin back out there momentarily.
Second red flag. I just saw something on the monitor that I absolutely have to have, Nick. It was a motorized recliner with a canopy over the top of it. My goodness.
And the best thing, there was a dog riding shotgun.
Yeah.
Just on the armrest, just having a great time. So that looked quite a ride for somebody to get around here.
He may get a chance to talk to him, Dave, first. He's stepping out of the race car. Race control notified him that he'll have to set for 10 minutes when we go back to green, and that will effectively end that session. And Nick, when you first look at the schedule for the weekend, you think, oh, from 10:45 to noon Eastern, that's plenty of time. But, we've had a couple of red flags now in this session, and all of a sudden, all of these teams from end to end on pit road find themselves with about 9 minutes remaining to fine-tune their race cars before we go qualifying later today.
I'm telling you, this is just a race weekend where you better roll off the truck fast and you better have a good feel for the race car, because there is just not a lot of time to learn. There's not a lot of time to make adjustments. I think this is a race weekend. It's why I think we've seen some upset winners over the years. If you're not ready to go right at the drop of the green flag for that opening practice session, it is an uphill battle to climb. As you mentioned, qualifying again later this afternoon at 3:25 Eastern, so we hope you'll join us. And Marcus, I look at the speed charts. Team Penske starting to flex some muscle with three of their drivers sitting in the top 4. Let's hear from the Russian driver out of his race car after that incident in turn 7. Dave first.
Let's talk to Mikhail Aloshin. You can't say you were pushing it out there.
Yeah, man. The track is pretty bumpy, but we're trying to get everything out of the car, and obviously I was trying a bit too much this time, unfortunately. So the car is fine. We're finishing because we got the penalty for causing the red flag. So we could continue if not that. So, but anyway, I feel it feels good on the track. The car feels all right.
How disappointing that you're not able to finish out this session.
Well, it's it doesn't worry us too much because we're gonna have qualified today, and basically we know that our car is good. So shit happens, but we're gonna need to do well in qualify. That counts, isn't it?
All right, we apologize for the language, but what did you learn in that let's call it an hour that you had out there? 10th quick. It looks like you've got a good race car.
Yes, I think that the team is doing a good job, and it seems like we're gonna have a good car. At least for now, it looked like everything gonna work well. So we just need to work in the same direction, and not like I did.
Not quite like that, but yeah.
Not like I did in the my last run now, but yeah, everything should be fine, I think.
Good luck in qualifying today.
Thank you.
That's Mikhail Aloshin. We'll sit and watch in the remaining 10 minutes here of this session.
I think I know what one of the first words was that he learned when he started speaking English. Seems to be a little partial to that as a descriptive phrase, but you gotta like him, don't you? Honestly,
I do.
My goodness.
I think, and you and I were talking about him on the way down, and he's a guy that I think, Mark, has all of the tools and the skills and the fearlessness to be a tremendous race car driver. I think he's incredibly talented. He's just got to hone it in a little bit. He had a great car at the 500 last weekend and lost it in turn number 1 and slapped the wall. But, Mark, he's fearless. He's got some personality. I like him a lot. But, unfortunately, the business of racing is you can't keep tearing up race cars. So if he can hone that in and channel all of those skills, because he's got it. He's got the capability to be a very, very fast race car driver. He could be a great driver in IndyCar for many years to come. Love the personality. Maybe don't like the language all the time.
I know. Say that word with a microphone in front of your face.
I know a lot of people aren't offended by language anymore. That's how our society is. But tough break for Mikhail Aloshin, as you mentioned. He will sit out the rest of this session, and that team's going to have to look over the rear of that car, make sure they didn't bend any suspension parts for qualifying later this afternoon.
We have had 4 different winners this season. Simon Pagenaud won 3 in a row before we got to the Indianapolis 500. Dixon, Montoya, Rossi winners. Let's see. 4 different drivers have poles this year. Castro Neves 2, Pagano 2, Hinch 1, and Will Power 1. Pagano has led 4 races this year, as has Elio. We talked about Charlie Kimball earlier. He's led 3 races this season. Other drivers who have led a couple of times include Connor Daly, Scott Dixon, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Juan Montoya, and Graham Rahal. Pagano has led the most laps this season at 217, Dixon at 157, Elio at 117. Montoya has led 100 laps on the season. We're back to green with 5 minutes left. And Nick, we expect parity over this next segment of the season because, again, you look at the top 10 and pretty much equally divided. There's 6 Chevys there, but 4 Hondas there as well.
Yeah, if Honda really has made up the ground on the road and street courses like they did at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, yeah, I think it opens up the series quite a bit more to see some more winners. We expect to see guys like Ryan Hunter-Reay start winning races. We expect to see James Hinchcliffe maybe find his way to victory lane. So it's going to be interesting. This summer stretch is certainly, Mark, where we really find out who can challenge for the championship. Simon Pagano has cemented his name up there, but who's going to challenge him? As you mentioned in the point standings, Scott Dixon sitting there second. No surprise to see Dixie right there. Elio Castroneves is knocking on, trying to find that first title, that elusive title he's been looking for. And then Joseph Newgarden and James Hinchcliffe, a pair of young drivers sitting 4th and 5th in points. So if Simon Pagano slips one more time, Mark, it's going to open this thing right back up, and there's a lot of racing to go.
Well, it's interesting to note, too, Nick, to that end in terms of drivers being consistent week in and week out. There's only 2 that have completed every lap. That's Elio and Scott Dixon to the 812 possible. 3 others have completed all but 1 lap. That's Kimball, Pagano, and Rahal. What can we glean from that? The guys that are at top of the points right now are the guys that have been the most consistent week in and week out.
Yeah, that's what it is. You just can't afford to make a mistake and have a 21st, 22nd, 20th place finish, or like as we saw in the 500 with double points on the line and 33 cars out there for Juan Montoya to finish last. That's a big blow, and that's why all of a sudden he finds himself 10th in points after looking like an early championship contender, repeating with the win at St. Petersburg. So consistency, Mark, is always going to be the name of the game, although, you know, Elio Castroneves has had some very consistent seasons over the years and hasn't been able to knock down the door to grab that first championship. But by and large, if you want to put yourself in position to have a chance at Sonoma, Mark, at the end of the year, that statistic that you brought up of completing every lap, that's going to help. That's going to put you right there at the end of the year.
Halfway through last season, I don't think anyone was looking at Scott Dixon as a serious contender. No. And then who was the last guy called up to the podium at the championship banquet at the season end?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Close to the season for Scott Dixon to get as hot as he did to win the final race of the year at Sonoma and the championship. And you know, the knock on Scott has always been that he never starts the season very well, but he kind of pushed that trend to the side, winning at Phoenix in the second race of the season, and then had a top 10 run at St. Petersburg, was second at Long Beach. So again, all of our focus and attention has been on Simon Pagano, and that's not us just trying to fluff him up. I mean, he's had an incredible year so far, but there are some hungry contenders right there, and as we've talked about, this summer stretch is there's so many races back to back that we're going to find out if anyone has anything for Pagano. And I wouldn't count out Scott Dixon. He'd be the guy that you want to keep your eye on the most.
4-time champion, and you can't put him in the conversation with those in that 40-something category whose sand might be running out of the proverbial hourglass because he's in his 30s.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's just been an unbelievable career for Scott Dixon, and as you said, it's not like there's any the sight at the end is near. Scott Dixon with 39 career wins, just racing his way up the record books, Mark. It's pretty amazing.
11 consecutive seasons, in fact, with at least 1 win for Scott Dixon coming into this season. Power, Castroneves, Dixon, Pagano, Hinch your top 5. Rahal 6th quick, 1:15.0197 in fact. Rahal 6th quick. Sebastian Bourdais 7th quick. Joseph Newgarden 8th quick. Carlos Munoz 9th quick. Mikel Aloshin parked because of bringing out a red flag. He was inside the top 10. Sato just bumped him out. Marco 12th. Montoya 13th. Hunter-Reay 14th. Connor Daly 15th. And Tony Ganon 16th quick. 17th quick for Hawksworth. 500 champion Alexander Rossi is 18th quick. Charlie Kimball 19th quick. Spencer Piggott 20th. Gabby Chavez 21st, Max Chilton 22nd quick. Again, next up for us, a bit of a break, but rejoin us at 3:25 Eastern as we get set to go qualifying. I'll be joined by our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton, in the booth. We'll put Nick and Jake out on the course, and Michael Young and Dave First will handle the duties on pit road. The schedule tomorrow, 30-minute practice session at 10:05 Eastern, and then we'll go racing at 3 o'clock Eastern tomorrow afternoon. Then on Sunday, qualifying for race number 2 gets underway at 10:40. That'll run till 11:15, and then race number 2 at 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Nick checkers flag, and with the exception of a lotion, a couple of incidents for Mikkel and some debris here and there. I think most importantly, these teams have to be happy with the fact that it was a rather event-free practice session in preparation for qualifying.
Yeah, had a late runoff for Connor Daly, who's going to end his practice session 15th quick. Some of the strong names, though, rising to the top. 4 Chevrolets at the top of the charts, but I don't think that's really indicative of whether Chevrolet is necessarily that much better than Honda. I just look at those 4 names: Power, Castroneves, Dixon, Pagano. I don't care if those guys are driving Datsuns out there, Mark. They're going to be strong. So those 4 at the top of the charts. James Hinchcliffe, the top Honda, 5th quick, and Graham Rahal right there in 6th. The other thing that I've noticed is the rookie drivers, those that are here at Belle Isle Park for the very first time. Spencer Piggott was 21st quick, Max Chilton was 22nd, and our Indy 500 champion Alexander Rossi was 19th. Those 3 drivers, those 3 rookies in the bottom 4 mark on the speed charts. So a lot of learning to do for those young drivers if they want to compete this weekend.
Dave First, Jake Query waiting to hopefully chat with a driver or 2. We'll see how extensive the debrief is. And guys, with the work that you've done during this session, if nobody's readily available to you quickly, we understand, and we'll go ahead and step away. We can tell you that interesting stretch coming up, Nick. June the 11th will be at Texas Motor Speedway under the lights. The 26th, the much-anticipated return to Road America. Then from there, June the 10th, we go to Iowa Speedway. And then, of course, race on the streets of Toronto in July on the 17th. The 31st at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Then the 21st of August, a pretty long stretch there from July 31st to August 21st till the Verizon IndyCar Series goes back to the tricky triangle at Pocono. And then Labor Day weekend, much excited about the return to Watkins Glen, and then we'll close out the season on September the 18th. But, Nick, a real interesting stretch in which you go from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to Belle Isle to Texas to Road America, then Iowa back to Toronto. A lot of work for these teams.
And that's what makes the Verizon IndyCar Series so exciting is, okay, you've got a pair of ovals coming up at Texas and Iowa. You've got some street course races like this one in Detroit and the tricky one in Toronto. You've got some natural terrain road courses like Mid-Ohio and Road America and Watkins Glen. It's why you're not going to find this type of racing anywhere in the world, and why, Mark, these drivers are so incredibly versatile. If you win the championship and pick up wins on so many different types of race courses, yeah, you've earned it. You've earned it. So it's going to be a fantastic summer stretch. You know, we look at the season, Mark, it's always kind of works in shifts. You've got the first 4 races of the season where you're starting to figure out who's got what and who's improved and who's, maybe taking a couple steps towards the championship at the beginning of the season. You've got the month of May, which is just it's in entirety its own beast for the month of May with 2 races now. And
you don't hear much about points during the month.
No, you never do. And then once we get to Detroit, this is when your focus kind of turns to the championship in this summer stretch. That's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of racing, and a lot of unique racing at that.
So Power, Castroneves, Dixon, Pagano, and Hinchcliffe. Rahal, Bourdais, Newgarden, Andretti, and Munoz your top 10. I'll tell you what, again, as we anticipated, the debrief is pretty extensive. And as we say that, Jake Query lets us know that he doesn't need to have Connor Daly. Jake?
I'll tell you what, Connor Daly, I'm talking about from my side of the wall, but in watching you, it looked like that was an incredibly active session and a lot of coming in and trying different things. And I'm assuming this course is pretty physical, and as a result, you always are having to tweak the balance of the car. Then again, I'm just a radio guy. True or false?
No, man. I mean, this track just presents a lot of unique challenges because it's like a motocross track. We're going down the back straight. The cars are, jumping all the way down the back straight, and the brake zone for 7 is just horrendous. I mean, every time we hit the bump there, we've got to adjust mechanically our setup a little bit to handle that. But I mean, we are losing a lot of time there only because we just can't go over the bumps. So that's the major challenge, is who's going to get around the bumps, in the most efficient way.
Green means go. You had a good-looking race car at Indianapolis, of course, with the red and white with Lily and, of course, T-shirts for America. But Jonathan Birds has stayed on board with you, and I heard you mention that you were happy to get back in that green and white machine. I know you love those other sponsors too, but these guys have been good to you.
Absolutely, man. I mean, this is the reason we're here for the season. It's awesome to be just continuously racing. I mean, obviously, with the disappointment that we had last weekend, everything was going well up until it wasn't. So, but these things happen, and we were wrong place, wrong time, and hopefully this weekend we can be at the right place at the right time 2 times. So we'll see what happens.
Good luck in qualifying.
Thank you.
That's Connor Daly, of course, that Jonathan Bird's machine driving for Dale Coyne. And keep in mind, Gabby Chavez back on board as well for this particular weekend. There has been some chatter that perhaps that's a full-time ride. No official announcement just yet, but we'll try to find out through qualifying or by tomorrow whether or not Gabby Chavez will be in that car beyond just this weekend in Belle Isle.
The 19 of Chavez, 20th quick. Connor Daly 16th quick in that session. Next up, qualifying, believe it or not, and what a format it is. Knockout qualifying of the Firestone Fast 6. We'll have all of that covered for you at 3:25 this afternoon. Really nice job today, getting a lot of great stuff on pit road from Dave First and Jake Query. Thanks for that. Also, thanks to Nick Yeoman for his help at the booth here today, and all of our guests that we had on the show. Again, join us this afternoon at 3:25. The director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network is Wally Levitt. Our engineering director is Rick Evans on site. He's also producing the show. For Nick Yeoman, I'm Mark James. So long for now from beautiful Belle Isle.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers.
Check. Thank you, Howdy. And here he comes. Past the halfway point on the backstretch, running all alone. 3 here, and Ron Carroll. And I pick him up, Doug. Here he comes into turn number 3. He passes me right now. Now out of number 3 into the short chute, and he'll be coming over to you, Jim Sheldon. Ronnie's right here. Handsome man with a beautiful car. Graham Hill in 24. Number 24, white-red trim with oil smudges and dollar signs. And here's Sid Collins.
Here he comes down the main stretch, and there's the checkered flag for Graham Hill, winner of the Golden Anniversary Indianapolis 500-mile race.
3:32 both days is when I'll come to you for the first time.
Red Ball Special.
Okay.
The white flag is out as he comes by right now. Pick him up, Mike Ahern in turn 1.
All right, Sid, we've got him, and this looks like an instant replay of last year. The blue and gold Johnny Lightning Special. Crowd on its feet as he goes into turn 2, and howdy, Bell. Howdy.
And the southeast vista here, the crowd stands, giving him a big wave now as Al Unser on the white flag lap goes through turn number 2. And sounding very nicely, moves right up the back stretch to Doug Zink. And we've got him here, Howdy, and the fans, some of whom have been laying on their blankets, paying no attention. Now we're up against the fence, waving him on. Al Unser is in turn number 3, and Ron Carroll.
Yes, Doug, and here he is in turn 3. Al Unser, car number 3. The dark blue, yellow streak, Johnny Lightning Special moves to number 4, and Jim Sheldon.
Thank you, Ron. Blue car with a big number 1, and he is number 1. And now to call the winner for the 24th consecutive time is our chief announcer, the voice of the 500, Sid Collins.
And here is Pat Vadan waving the checkered flag for Al Unser, winner of the 1971 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Al Unser on his final lap, Ron Carroll.
All right, and he's by us right now. Al Unser, 196.474 he qualified at, and he's in the number 1 position on his final lap as he heads to turn 2 and Howdy Bell.
He flashes by us. Only 4 other drivers have ever won this event 3 times, and if things go right for a couple of laps, Al will be the 5th one. Darrell?
He's right in Doug Zink's lap right now in turn 3.
Winner in 1970 and again in 71, putting 2 victories back-to-back, is within about a quarter of a lap of victory number 3. Jim, pick him up in turn number 4.
All right, we're here in number 4, and there he goes, a newlywed And here to call the checkered flag, a guy that did another great job today, our chief announcer, Paul Page.
Doing a fantastic job is Al Unser. The checkered flag is waved. His hand is in the air. Al Unser, the winner of the 1978 500-mile race. Johnny Rutherford down the main straightaway. The white flag showing to him the car number 4 on the board. Now less than 2.5 miles to victory.
And what a fantastic race Johnny Rutherford has run today. The fans are on their feet cheering him on to victory. He's over to turn 2, Howdy.
As once again, in a very select group of 3-time winners, he will join as he goes up the backstretch. Johnny Rutherford begin to hands off of the steering wheel, saluting the fans here on the last lap. He is about a third of a lap away from victory. Doug.
And here he drops down into turn number 3, slowing up maybe just a little bit, it seems, into the short chute. Darrell, take him home. Great round of applause, a waving to him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here we call a checkered flag for the winner of the world's greatest auto race, the voice of the 500, Paul Page.
Number 4, the Pennzoil Chaparral, his hands in the air. Johnny Rutherford wins the 1980 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
197 laps complete, working on 198. We look for them now at the head of the main straightaway, and we have them coming now. There's Al, there's Mo, here's Jerry Baker.
There are 3 cars to work their way around. Now, Unser's got by one of them. He got by Rocky Moran, so Moran is now stuck in the between. Now, there is Fittipaldi moving around Moran in number 2.
They've got slower traffic in front of them now. Al trying to get to the outside to pass Emo right behind him. Emo moves to the outside, down in front of Howdy Bill. Moved to very close to that white line. They head for 3. Emo may have him, Larry.
They're side by side. Emo on the inside. Al caught in traffic. Goes high. They touch wheels. Oh. Junior into the wall hard. Emerson Fittipaldi keeps on going. They touched wheels. Al Jr. into the wall, and Emerson Fittipaldi will lead them back to the yellow flag.
So, that's racing, I guess. We have a winner now, most probably, moving by now. Emerson Fittipaldi, who touched wheels with Al Unser Jr., has assumed the lead, and he's passed you, Jerry Baker.
We're on the last lap. Wow, this is what you pay your money for right here. Here's Buddy Lazier. It's about, maybe 30 yards, and there's Davy Jones. They settle it into the short chute, and Kenny Double's got a good look at it.
Buddy Lazier is in control, smoothly through turn number 2. Jones quickly behind, but Lazier in control, heading to 3.
A half lap to go indeed. It's Buddy Lazier's race to win or lose. And now about 30, 35, 40 yards. Nothing between first and second as they head to turn 4.
Buddy Lazier, the final turn of the day. He has it made. He's just got to keep it between the white lines. Here to call the finish, Bob Jenkins.
The 1996 Indianapolis 500 is won by Buddy Lazier.
Has but 1 lap to go, and the rookie will pick up the checkered flag. The white flag is out now. 1 more lap to go.
White flag for Juan Montoya. He is all by himself right now as he heads into turn number 1.
7 victories in CART last year, 7 poles. He's about to win the biggest prize in his history. He is in the second turn.
Talk about what seems to be the perfect mesh between man and machine. This guy has been brilliant. That car has been near perfect all day.
Climbed into an IndyCar for the first time in March. It was a marriage that he became accustomed to very rapidly. Came within a couple of ticks to getting the pole. He's going to get the big prize, though, Bob Levy, the Indy 500.
Yeah, his target is right on target. Coming through for Juan Montoya. Heads to the checkered flag. Call the finish, my king.
He may be a rookie, but he is for real. Flashbulbs capture the finish as Juan Montoya wins the 84th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Now less than 2 miles away from winning the 90th Indianapolis 500.
More left-hand turns, and Marco Andretti has clutched the lead. He heads into the second corner.
What a headline it's going to make. Marco Andretti wins in his debut in Indianapolis. He has a 7-car length advantage midway down the backstretch for the final time.
Coming up on the scene in which he may have won the race last time by. They're waving bandanas, waving heads. Took the left turn for racing immortality for 19-year-old Marco Andretti.
And Sam Hornish Jr. right on the tail of Marco Andretti. Can a teenager win in Indianapolis?
Here's the finish. Sam Hornish Jr. makes the pass. He'll win it.
And Hunter Ray darts in, moves to the outside as they get the white flag. 1 to go, Jerry. They are side by side. Elio looks to the outside. Elio will have to take the number 2 spot. He's right on the rear wing of Brian Hunter Ray. Hunter Ray looking for number 1. Elio Castroneves looking for win number 4. Ryan Hunter Ray, 8-car he have anything at all left in the tank? A couple of turns to go. Ryan Hunter-Reay leads in Indy.
Turn number 800 is upon us. Less than a car length is the difference. The final turn. Hunter-Reay to call the finish. The voice of the 500, Paul Page.
And it is Ryan Hunter-Reay that is going to lead Helio Castroneves across the line. Ryan Hunter-Reay has his first Indianapolis 500-mile race win.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
3 consecutive seasons he came within an eyelash of winning a championship. So while the focus may be elsewhere for Will Power, it's focused squarely upon the championship. He'll be content to fly under the radar. Looks like he might fly under the radar to victory lane here at St. Pete today.
Hunter-Reay takes a look to the inside as they move into 4. Will Power shuts the door. The distance about a half a car length. Then you move back to Helio Castroneves. Moving right in on Castroneves, Scott Dixon, but still the leader. Will Power, who came into this season with 2,009 laps led in the Verizon IndyCar Series. Will Power in that Verizon number 12 machine out in front, St. Petersburg, Florida.
Will Power, who picked up the momentum at the end of last year, obviously is ready to continue. And a master of the road courses, he comes weaving down the front straight. He's got so much time. Takes the checkered flag with Ryan Hunter-Reay right behind him.
It was physical, man. Like, we went for so long without a yellow.
From Belle Isle Park in Detroit, Michigan, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
We said it before, earlier today, we'll say it again, the cure for the Indy 500 hangover, the Chevrolet Duel in Detroit. Beautiful Belle Isle, the venue. I'm Mark Janes. Welcome to our coverage here on IndyCar Radio of qualifying for race number 1 of this Duel in Detroit. And 22 drivers set to tackle this tricky race course. We'll be joined today by our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton. Out on the course will be Nick Yeoman and Jake Query. Dave First is on pit road, but also we welcome Michael Young.
Well, good afternoon, Mark Janes. Looking forward to a beautiful day here and a beautiful weekend here at Belle Isle. Sure beats last year, that is for sure. Cold and rainy, but beautiful and sunny here today with 3-time pole sitter, 3-time winner, all-time lap leader, Helio Castroneves, as you prepare to go into your car. I find it interesting, your crew, they're polishing that car to make it look its very best before you go out here.
You know, we are in Detroit, man. You got to make sure it looks good. The boss is right over there looking, so... But in the end of the day, it's a great place. What a weather. You couldn't ask for a better weather today, and I hope the people and the fans are enjoying because I'm having a great time. Hopefully, out there, the Hitachi car seems to be looking strong, and, well, we've got to keep going and see what happens in qualifying.
I'll take the liberty and say I'm guessing Indianapolis is your favorite race course in the world. This has to be a close second.
Yeah, definitely. Every time you come to a place that, first of all, the fans really welcome you well. Second, it's when the track is actually super challenging and cool. And third, I mean, every time the place is good to you, the place is good to you. You're happy. So it's great to be back, and let's continue having the good weather. And hopefully we're going to have also a better qualifying as well.
For the fans who don't get an opportunity to see you before you get into the car, you go through a ritual. You really get yourself limber and loosened up. If you don't do that, if you've ever found yourself not getting loosened up, does it affect you in the car?
It's not the end of the day, but it's always good to be, warm and ready. You see a lot of those players as well. They're getting, warm up. We can't just go out there and warm up and start doing sprints. It's a little bit tough. But with this weather, it's not that difficult. But it's always good to go a little bit loose and let it loose.
Good luck today.
Thanks.
He'll be in group number 2 qualifying this afternoon. Driver number 3 entry, that's Helio Castroneves.
14-turn temporary street course. We're a minute away from qualifying, 2.35 miles. And Davey Hamilton, a couple of fast portions of this race course. Once you exit turn number 2, the setup for turn number 3. And then that back straightaway, probably the longest, fastest portion of this race course off of 6 leading to 7.
This track is really unique, as Elio said, and that back straightaway, Mark, is crazy. It's asphalt now. It's been repaved or asphalted. I'm sorry, concreted, and it is the bumpiest straightaway I've ever been on. These guys are bouncing around, and it's a challenge to go down that straightaway. And by the way, the end of that straightaway is probably the best passing zone, or one of the best passing zones on the entire racetrack. We have 2 long straightaways, one going into 7, which we talked about off that back straightaway, and then one going into turn 3, which is another great passing zone. But man, that back straight is, I can't even explain it. I've never been on anything so bumpy. It's like an off-road course. So these guys in one of the best passing zones is going to be bouncing around like crazy. And I think Ryan Hunter-Reay says that the car's not off the ground, but his legs are banging around inside there, and you can kind of lose track of your pedals a little bit. So it's challenging.
2 veterans will be on the course calling action today. We've reversed their order from where they were at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That aforementioned tricky portion around that 5-6 complex is where Jake Query will have the view today. Jake?
Good afternoon to you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. And as Helio Castroneves said, and we have talked about, absolutely perfect weather. Chamber of Commerce weather here for Belle Isle in the city of Detroit. Pure Michigan is the banner that hangs to the outside of turn number 6. It's directly across from me. I guess technically speaking, that banner would be to the inside of the turn. But when they take that left-hander that is turn number 5, it's not a very long journey before you have to set up for that right-hander below me that's turn number 6. Theoretically, it's a couple of lanes wide, but we've seen a lot of cars over the years get hung out and hung to dry here as they make their way through. The field now, those that are in this session, James Hinchcliffe, Tony Kanaan already coming through. You can hear the roar of the engines. Then it's Montoya. Really a full skate for everybody in this session. Dixon, Aloshin, Will Power, Alexander Rossi, and then Ryan Hunter-Reay. So busy activity here as they work their way through that 5, 6, 7 combo. One of the guys that'll be doing it shortly is down on pit road with Dave First.
Yeah, an opportunity to catch up real briefly with Simon Pagenaud before he hops in the number 22 Hewlett-Packard Enterprise machine for Team Penske. What did you learn in practice this morning you can utilize here this afternoon?
Relearn the track, because this is a straight circuit and you don't get to practice here. So it was a really good session for us. I thought the HPE car was pretty nice. So hopefully we can have a strong afternoon here.
Here's the thing for you, Indy 500's out of the way. Now it's all about winning that Verizon IndyCar Championship this year.
Yeah, absolutely. We started the championship in a very good way. So just want to keep that momentum going. I feel strong everywhere, so it's awesome. I'm having such a good time, and the 22 team is also such a good team to have fun together. So we'll see.
Good luck today. Simon Pagenaud, he's the points leader right now, getting ready to hop into that second group of qualifying here momentarily.
What a difference a year makes in terms of weather here in Detroit. Michael Young, Mother Nature spoiling us here on beautiful Belle Isle today.
78 degrees. I remember last year standing in a puddle of water, and it was maybe 50 at best. Track temperature 103. Mark, indeed. Chamber of Commerce, as Jake Query said, a beautiful weekend in store for us here on the streets of Belle Isle.
Davey Hamilton referenced it moments ago, but perhaps the best passing zone on the course is turn number 7, and we have positioned Nick Yeoman there this afternoon. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Davey. Hello, IndyCar fans. Turn 7 is an exciting one. We expect fireworks all weekend long. Corvette banners, Chevrolet Corvette banners to either side of those drivers as they make their way down that very bumpy back straightaway. In fact, here comes one driver. It's the rookie Spencer Pigot. He's in that number 20 Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka car. Marco Andretti shortly behind him. It is a right-hander. There's a set of blue and white rumble strips curving to the inside of this right-hand turn in turn number 7. So the drivers really can't cut this corner, but still, the high speed down the back straightaway, a hard 90-degree turn 7. It is certainly a fantastic passing point here on the racetrack. They'll make their way then around a bender around turn number 8, turn number 9, a trickier portion of the racetrack. But Mark, right here, that corner of Casino Way, watching these drivers navigate all weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun here at Belle Isle.
For those of you that may have minimized the screen and are working, but we do want to let you know this group number 1 consists of Will Power, Scott Dixon, James Hinchcliffe, Sebastian Bourdais, Marco Andretti, Takuma Sato, Juan Montoya, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Tony Kanaan, Indianapolis 500 winner Alexander Rossi, and then Spencer Pigot, who's new to the roster this week, in the number 20 machine for Ed Carpenter. Davey, we saw the fast guys in the 115s after the session today. Is that the mark? Has the track changed much since we went practicing in preparation for qualifying today?
Well, we'll see them jump down in the 114s for sure, Mark, just because of earlier in this 115 they had the standard black sidewall tires, which is the tire that we use normally. They'll put the red sidewall softer compound tires on for qualifying, and definitely balance. Sometimes the balance changes between the blacks and the reds, and you can't really, when I say balance change, maybe the understeer where a car just won't turn as good, or the back doesn't have as much grip because you're a little sideways. But if the balance stays the same, they'll definitely be faster on the reds.
Top 6 for now. Scott Dixon at 1:16.0215. Tony Kanaan, Sebastian Bourdais, Juan Montoya, Ryan Hunter-Reay, and James Hinchcliffe. Doubleheader weekend, Davey. That meant that practice session this morning was ultra important.
Very, very important because, like you said, going into a doubleheader, and we got to remember is everybody races super hard, but if you have a big accident or incident on their first race, you only have overnight to get the car ready for the next one. And by the way, you don't want to injure yourself, right? And this is a physically demanding track with the bumps, and as hard as it is to handle this place, and how hard it is to turn on some of these corners. These drivers got to be in superb shape just to be able to, make 2 races.
Just under 5 minutes left in this session. A lot of cars on pit road. Dave first. We know 8 sets of primary and 3 sets of alternate tires for the weekend of those Firestone Firehawks.
And we're going to get a good look at these alternate reds here real quick as all the machines have made their way back onto pit road. And now a few of them putting on those reds. That includes the number 20 of Spencer Pigot. That's the number 12 of Will Power taking off. How about Alexander Rossi, Michaela Lotion, Tony Kanaan? Let's see what these alternate reds can do out in this 2.5-mile, 14-turn layout here on the streets of Belle Isle.
Happy to be joined in the broadcast booth by one of the most respected motorsports journalists in the country. Become a very, very good friend of IndyCar Radio and of mine personally. Welcome to Detroit, Louis Frank.
I just love being here. And the weather is so much different than last year. And one other thing, I'm sitting next to a driver. I'm a little embarrassed, but again, the faster speeds come, as more rubber is laid down. And on top of saving the reds, you run the blacks to clean the track off a little. So I'm looking forward for the later we go, the faster we're going to see. But getting back to Roger Penske seems to improve this place every year. Something is just a little nicer. It's an amazing. If you're within earshot of this broadcast streaming, come down. You're going to have a great time.
Today was a free day, by the way. They opened the gates and let all the fans come and enjoy it that wanted to. Takuma Sato, Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Sebastian Bourdais, Juan Montoya, and Ryan Hunter-Reay. Davey, is it my imagination, or is this the kind of place that's pretty easy for a driver to gap and get himself a good qualifying lap?
Yeah, you can. You got plenty of room to get a gap. It's 2.5-mile course. You don't need to be on top of each other. And right now, they had themselves spread out pretty nicely, actually.
How about the transitions here from asphalt to pavement back to pavement? The trickiest part of it?
That's another tricky part as well. And matter of fact, if you're going over turn 2, there's a bridge here, Mark. So you're on a left-hander, and the car's loaded on those right-hand tires. We've seen it last year. How many guys? We see 2 or 3 guys crash right there last year where the back end steps out. They go to correct it and hit that outside wall. And if I remember, I was one of Roger's cars in the Quicken Loans car. I can't remember who was driving it. That hit really hard right there. So it's a tricky area, and you're going over a concrete bridge back onto asphalt. So those differences are tricky.
Jake Query.
I was mentioning earlier here in this turn 6 combo, and it's got a decent bump in the middle of it. it's a wide area of the street here. Theoretically, when you go into it, you can be tempted to go out wide. But Davey, perhaps you've noticed this. It's in the best interest, I notice, of everybody. Even though you feel like you could sweep it to the outside, they're taking that line very low, very early, because of the fact that the energy in that right-handed turn seems to bring the back of the race car around and narrowly avoid that exterior wall as you miss that, or as you take that right-handed turn in number 6.
Well, and one thing that's going to happen is it is slick there right now. As all the series that are on the track this weekend continue to go, it will rubber up and it get better, but it's so hard to get rubber on that asphalt. It's really smooth back there, or I'm sorry, the concrete, and it's a challenge right there, because you're going on to the longest straightaway of the facility, so you want a good exit right there, as we see Hinchcliffe get a little sideways through turn 4 right there, but it is a challenge for sure.
Kanaan is P1, Sato, Will Power, James Hinchcliffe, Scott Dixon, and Sebastian Bourdais. Looks like the car of Will Power is coming into the view of Jake Query.
Yep, Power starts to swing it to the outside and then very quickly tucks down through turn number 6. Power now works his way, that right-hander at turn 7.
Power making his way down the back straightaway, pops into my view now underneath the Chevrolet Corvette bridge. He'll jump onto the brakes. He'll pop that throttle a couple of times and make his way through number 7. And then here comes our Indy 500 champion, Alexander Rossi. He tiptoes his way through turn number 7 and breathes that throttle to the left-hander of turn number 8, Mark.
Takuma Sato clears the view of Jake Query. Coming up behind him, Jake, the number 2 of Juan Montoya, coming to turn 6.
Montoya just went through, as a matter of fact, takes that right-hander that is turn number 7. Then the track goes silent. Big gap back behind Montoya, but he should be in your view, Nick.
Yeah, Montoya hard on the brakes. Just seconds ago, Scott Dixon, the defending Verizon IndyCar Series champion, he locked them up into turn number 7. Did not go into the runoff area, but kicked up a lot of tire smoke. Montoya clear of that turn 8, 9, and 10 portion.
Jake Kanaan trying to get a gap, but it looks like he might be off the pace a little bit in 6.
Yep, Kanaan right now shows himself in 2nd. He starts to slow down. Then you've got that rookie Spencer Pigot in that Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka machine. Gets a little loose coming out of 6. He's got James Hinchcliffe just behind him. Pigot and Hinchcliffe coming at Nick Yeoman.
Tony Kanaan through turn number 7. He's currently P2, so he is safe. Here comes Pigot. That car wobbles back and forth as he sets up for the right-hander. James Hinchcliffe may be on him pretty quickly. Pigot and Hinchcliffe through turn number 8.
The time has expired in this first session. Right now we see Dixon, Kanaan, Montoya, Sato, Power, and Hinchcliffe, the top 6. Bourdais, Hunter-Reay, Marco Andretti, Alex Rossi, and Spencer Pigot on the outside looking in. Davey, we're taking a look at Will Power. I don't know that he's necessarily limping around the race course, but it looked for a while he was nowhere close to being at speed.
He's really off the pace. I don't see any damage to the car whatsoever. I don't know. He was trying to get out of the way if any cars were coming, just so he didn't impede their qualifying effort. But, I don't see any damage, but he's definitely off the pace.
Nick Yeoman.
I'll tell you what, he just made his way through turn number 7, and our pit guys may get an even better look out of it, but I think the left rear wheel pod, it looks like there were some scrapes right where that number 12 is on the left rear. So I believe, again, the pit guys may get a better look at it, but I have a feeling Will Power might have tagged a wall around the course here at Belle Isle with the left side, the left rear of that race car, guys.
We just saw it, Davey.
Yep.
That's not part of the paint scheme.
Yeah, he definitely did hit that. It's still connected, as you said, didn't look damaged other than it's flopping around a little bit, so you're right. And, when I said they're going to go into the 114s, Will Power, with black tires on, in practice, went a 1:15.0. But you got to remember, he was a half a second faster than the next fastest car, which that was his teammate, Helio Castroneves. So with these red tires on, they didn't even go as fast at a 1:15.3 as they did earlier on their standard blacks.
Good news is Will Power moves on. Bad news is the damage to the point to where he's going to have trouble continuing on. We'll see once we get a report, an update from pit road. So Louis Frank, motorsports journalist, joins us now. And Louis, clearly you did not go to Vegas with a load of money on Alexander Rossi because you're still working as a motorsports journalist.
Yes, unfortunately. Reuters pays very well, but wouldn't pay the 66 to 1. 66 to 1. Incredible odds. So I'm still here. I'm happy to be with you. Tell you, I'm coming here for free. How's that?
You're not the only one. Let's go to pit road and Michael Young.
Yeah, here in Will Power's pit, I don't see a lot of damage to that right rear pod on the rear wing, although they are changing it. Actually, the left side, yep, it is the left side. My apologies. I thought I had heard right. Is indeed not a lot of damage to the left. I'll walk around and see if we can't see a little bit better what happened to Will Power, but they are changing the left rear. Actually, we'll change all 4 of the tires, but doesn't look like there's any damage, although the sidewall of that machine is scuffed on that tire, I should say. Yeah, just the outside of that pod, Mark, has a scrape on it. Doesn't look like there's any severe damage, but still, they're going back and looking at the suspension right now. Potentially something broke on that car as they are going to work on that. Let's go to Dave first.
They had an opportunity to catch up with Alexander Rossi, who did not advance to the second qualifying session here today. But this aside, as an Indy 500 champion, how do you describe the last few days that you've had to endure going to New York, Dallas? What's it been like as a 500 champ?
It's been pretty busy, man. Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have, I guess. Yeah, pretty busy. Wanted to get here and focus on this weekend. That was not what we were looking for. I mean, as a team, to be 8th, 9th, 10th is pretty bad. So, I don't know, man. We have to look at it.
Where are you right now? Obviously, this is your first time here on a very bumpy layout at Belle Isle. What did you make of this place when you first showed up?
It's insane, man. I mean, I hope the fans enjoy it because we're working really hard out there, and it's not easy at all. But, I mean, it's part of what makes the Verizon IndyCar Series what it is, and we need to just deal with it and suck it up and hope our hands survive for the next couple of days.
I would think the learning curve is all the more steep because you guys don't have a lot of track time. You had the practice session this morning, and then all of a sudden here we are in qualifying. You got a race tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, having only 1 hour and 15 minutes of practice around here didn't make my life easy, but it's not supposed to be easy. So we'll put our heads down and try and figure it out and go back to work tomorrow.
Nothing's easy. I got to ask you, how exhausted are you after everything you've been through the last week?
I'm all right, man. I think I've gotten a good 16, 20 hours of sleep in the last 2 days. So, I mean, considering where I came from, that's much better. So.
How do you do that? I mean, we're guys in our 40s. We'd love to have that kind of sleep time,
Medication, no, I'm kidding. I try and be disciplined, and I know that sleep's important, so put a priority on it.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Alexander Rossi, the 500 champ, will roll off 17th here tomorrow afternoon, guys.
Busy session for Ryan Hunter-Reay, who did not make it into the Fast Six. An incident with Will Power, incident involving Sebastian Bourdais and Ryan Hunter-Reay. Those were separate incidents, both involving Ryan. Incidents are under review and no further action being taken. And Davey, right now, it doesn't look like that Marco and Ryan Hunter-Reay are making dinner plans for after
yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
And Michael is right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on right there, but yeah, it doesn't look friendly.
So we'll see if either Michael Young or Dave First can weigh in on what that conversation is like. And again, Michael Andretti, team owner, is there. Marco, Ryan Hunter-Reay visiting about something I'm guessing that happened on the track during that session, and neither one of them able to move on to the next round. So, Lewis, back to our post-mortem, if you will, on the Indianapolis 500. Very, very different set of circumstances, quite frankly. The last few years, very, very compelling, very exciting to a lot of fans with a lot of lead changes toward the end. And this time it came down to fuel mileage and a car all but coasting across the start-finish line. By the same token, I thought it was still a very exciting race.
This was almost, I think of it like a bunt in baseball. It was just a sacrifice thing. Let's go for it. But I asked Jimmy Johnson one time about an odd person winning, and he says a W's a W. And everyone had the same opportunity. Everybody had the chance to make a strategy on fuel, and Brian Herta did it perfectly, just like he did a couple of years back with Dan Weldon. And so, I want to see two drivers come to the end. I ran into Little Al on Friday night, and he talked about him and Emerson. You want to see that kind of finish. You want to see something. But at the end of the day, this is what we had, and it was. You just have to appreciate it for what it was. It would have been more fitting to see everybody battling at the end, but as I said, Brian Herta needs a team again. I think, but they did get the sponsor for this week, and I think that's a very good sign.
Yeah, we hope they stay on the car at least through Texas. I know there's been some rumblings about that. We continue now to prepare for round 2 of qualifying. In that group will be Elio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, Graham Rahal, Joseph Newgarden, Carlos Munoz, Mikel Aloshin, Charlie Kimball, Connor Daly, Jack Hawksworth, Gabby Chavez, and Max Chilton. The 6 that they'll join: Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Juan Montoya, Takuma Sato, Will Power, James Hinchcliffe. Green flag, session number 2 underway here at the Duel in Detroit.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Planes racing by your seat at 265 miles per hour. Pilots withstanding up to 10 G's of force right in front of you. Experience the thrill from closer than ever before. Red Bull Air Race World Championship. Witness the world's ultimate motorsport series at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, October 1st and 2nd. Tickets now on sale. More info at redbullairrace.com.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at Belle Isle, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Preparing for duel number 1 here in Detroit. Mark Janes, Davey Hamilton, Louis Frank in the booth. We've got Jake Query and Nick Yeoman out on the course. Michael Young, Dave First, patrolling pit road. Those 6 into the next round of 12. Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Juan Montoya, Takuma Sato, Will Power, and James Hinchcliffe. Those on the outside looking in. Sebastian Bourdais, a winner a year ago, will start 13th. Ryan Hunter-Reay will start 15th. Alexander Rossi 17th. Marco Andretti 19th. Spencer Pigot will start 21st. Davey, good news to see Spencer Pigot in that car for Ed Carpenter.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise, and let's find out from Spencer himself how that all happened.
Well, indeed. I know you wanted qualifications to be a little bit better, Spencer, but you're here, and that's the big thing. How did this entire process go down since the 500?
Yeah, it all came together pretty quick, but happy to be here and back in the car a lot sooner than I expected. So, big thanks to Ed Carpenter Racing, Fuzzies, Rising Star Racing, everyone for putting it together. And yeah, it was a tough day out there. It's hard to come here with never been here before. It's a crazy track, so just trying to learn everything and get used to it.
Compared to like St. Petersburg, somewhere like that, is there any comparison to that in here at Belle Isle?
Not really. I mean, this is a pretty unique place, I think. So, it's tough with only one short practice session to come straight into qualifying. So, we'll just see where we can get better and try again tomorrow.
You had the announcement yesterday. I understand there was some golfing involved with the media announcement yesterday. I didn't know. Are you a golfer?
No, I'm not, but Fuzzy is, so just a little tie in there.
There you go. Well, it'd be good if he taught you some things, because I know the young man's had a hole in 1 or 2 in his day.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
There you go. Best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Spencer Pigot, he'll be starting 21st in race number 1.
Jake Query, there's Mikel Aloshin, the number 7 into your view.
Yeah, Mikel Aloshin makes that turn. He started out, Nick, this is interesting, on the softer compound red tires. So too did Max Chilton coming behind him. And then Elio Castroneves, who's on those primary blacks.
Loshin makes his way tiptoeing through turn number 7. This is where he had problems earlier in the practice session this morning. That car got sideways and ripped up the rear wing assembly. The damage not bad enough to keep him out of qualifying. Loshin through turn 7, as is Chilton. Elio Castroneves. Here comes Connor Daly as well. He'll go over those blue and white curbing and make his way through turn number 8. Behind him, Joseph Newgarden and Gabby Chavez.
Long haul down that back straightaway for the runner-up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Nick Yeoman. Here comes the 26 of Carlos Munoz.
Yeah, blue and white this weekend for Carlos Munoz, the Colombian. So disappointed to end up second the Indianapolis 500, but comes to a racetrack where a lot of good feelings must rush back through the Colombian's head. Carlos Munoz through turn number 8, turn number 9, a winner, Mark, 1 year ago here in Detroit.
Pagenaud, Castroneves, Kimball, Chilton. Now let's go Pagenaud, Castroneves, Newgarden, Kimball, Chilton, and Rahal, the top 6. Jake, some troubles for Mikel Aloshin in that practice session. That car's back together, though, and coming into your view.
Yep, that Doom machine. Good-looking race car, actually. Black and red, has those flames that are on the front of it, and No flames earlier, Nick, but as you'd mentioned, it was a rough session for Michael Aloshin. He's coming back into your view of that car, looking much better than it did, as Mark had said in practice.
Yeah, and he is full song through turn number 7. Right now, he's currently 8th quick. Aloshin about the only car making his way through this portion of the racetrack, through the left-hander of turn 8, left-hander of turn number 9. That's the Russian Michael Aloshin.
Carlos Munoz is currently 6th quick of the 11. Jake, he's back into your view.
Yep, Munoz, as Nick had mentioned, this is a place that you would think is favorable for him. Blue car this week for Carlos Munoz, white on top of it, still car number 26, starting to come in. It blends in with that pure Michigan banner. He drives under before he comes into that 7-8-9 combo.
Hard on the brakes for Carlos Munoz. Hasn't had a lot of success qualifying here at Detroit in 4 races, Mark. He's only started in the top 10 just once. Carlos Munoz through turn number 9.
Gabby Chavez flew by Jake Query before we could get it to him. That means he's coming into the view of Nick Yeoman. He's got some work to do, Nick. He's currently 20th overall.
Yeah, he's another driver. Just happy to be in the race car this weekend. Nothing was really guaranteed from that Dale Coyne racing team after Indianapolis. Chavez sets up for the left-hander of turn number 8, up on that blue and white curbing. As you mentioned, has some work to do, trying to find some speed here in the final moments of qualifying.
Elio Castro Neves works his way through that 3-4 complex. Turn 4 is a right-hander. He'll bump back into the throttle now, the left-hander through turn number 5. Here he comes, Jake. He's led over 200 laps here.
He is behind a guy who has also won here in the form of Graham Rahal, but these two, Nick, have decided to space themselves out and give themselves some breathing room. Rahal, Castroneves, and then you've got Pagenaud.
With 3 poles and 3 wins, I don't know how Elio Castroneves can't be one of the favorites. He slowly makes his way through turn number 7. He's already 2nd quick, so doesn't have to find a lot of speed. Pagenaud right behind him. Pagenaud currently the quickest driver, and then Aloshin, who has backed it down through turn number 7. Mark, a lot of cars just trying to space their way out here in qualifying.
3 minutes left in this session, and Davey, we see Charlie Kimball currently running 5th. That's where he finished in the 500. Charlie Kimball is really had a pretty good season so far, the Verizon IndyCar series.
He runs good, 14th quickest in practice, so he's up in that just a little bit right now, and with that different color car than we're used to seeing him in this year. And you see the bumps. Watch this car go around, and I mean, this track is so bumpy, and down this long back straightaway he's getting ready to go on. It's your hands are full going straight.
Top 6: Pagenaud, Castroneves, Newgarden, Munoz, Kimball, and Rahal. And again, Louis Frank joins us in the booth. And Louis, is there any circuit that we've been coming to off and on for a number of years that has changed more over the years than this one here at Belle Isle?
I can't think of any. I was here 10, 15 years ago. As I said, Roger Penske keeps improving it. I just like, Dad, watching these bumps, I think I'm looking at Sebring. You know, World War II. I mean, they lose cars there. I'm watching these cars and wondering how the heck do these drivers last 70 laps here? That's really bad. Well, I bet you Roger will repave this, smooth it out for next year or something. This is amazing. You see the suspension travel. You never see suspension travel on these cars.
Davey, tomorrow to start the race, Ryan Hunter-Reay will take us on the lap around. We got those comments and observations from here today, and from him today. And Ryan Hunter-Reay's using phrases like running like your hair's on fire and knees bouncing off the cockpit and moving your hands like you're swatting flies, all of those things.
Yeah.
And that sounded a lot like your 2-seater trip, didn't it?
Yeah, well, when we first, Jill DeFerrin and I went out yesterday giving some 2-seater rides, and after the first lap, DeFerrin radioed to me and says, is your car bouncing? He thought there was something like broke or wrong with his car because it bounced so much that you lose, literally your feet cannot stay on the bottom of the race car. They're bouncing around in there, and it was actually like that last year. So it's the same backstretch as before that it was last year. But it's these guys are remembering it right now. It's painful.
Nick Yeoman's
mouth guards.
Nick Yeoman's summer nights can find you on short tracks from time to time. You thought you were at one watching Charlie Kimball go through 7?
Oh, it looked like Charlie Kimball was just hanging it on the cushion, bouncing it off at Kokomo. Yeah, he got awful sideways here through turn number 7. Was able to keep it off of that tire barrier that kind of sticks out. A few more drivers making their way through. Elio Castroneves, Jack Hawksworth, and our points leader, Simon Pagenaud, setting up for turn 8.
Less than a minute to go. Pagenaud, Munoz, Kimball, Castroneves, Newgarden, and Rahal through that 4, 5, and 6. One more time for the 19 machine of Gabby Chavez, Jake.
I'll tell you what, Munoz 2 times by really got a little bit loose coming out of turn 6. Chavez Gomez actually pretty clean exit out of 6th. There goes Munoz, and again, that car starts to bounce out just a little bit on him on that turn number 6. Charlie Kimball got a little wiggly out of 5, takes it down to the bottom in turn 6. This time very smooth through turn number 6. Charlie Kimball now through 7.
I think the most difficult thing about the bumps on this back straightaway is it's really anything but a straightaway. It's got a curve, so these drivers have to maneuver these cars from the left to the right to set up for these corners. That time a lot smoother for Charlie Kimball through turn number 7, Mark.
Checkered flag is out, Davey. We're going to wait for him to clear timing and scoring for the final time. For now, it's Pagano, Munoz, Castro Neves, Kimball, Rahal, and Delosian. This would be a nice rebound for Graham Rahal if it can stick. It really wasn't a memorable Indianapolis 500 for Graham.
Well, one thing that he had at the Indianapolis 500, a lot of action in front of him. I don't know how many spins and accidents happened just directly right in front of him, so he definitely had his hands full. But, what do we got, turn 7?
Oh, yeah, we got Jack Hawksworth. In fact, he missed the runoff, had to lock him up, and now he sits in the runoff right below me. Ryan, not really enough room to really turn that car around. So Jack Hawksworth pushing as hard as he can, Mark, has gotten into the runoff here in turn 7.
Hawksworth was 22nd quick as it was, so Davey, he's struggling just a little bit. On the other hand, his teammate Takuma Sato made it into the round of 12.
Yeah, well, what's surprising, he's actually from Helio Castroneves at a 1:15.6. He's a 1:18.3, almost 3 seconds off the pace and missing turn on. So there's something, yeah, he's way off the pace.
To pit road and Michael Young.
With Ryan Hunter-Ray on nearly falling off the stand here. That was me, not Ryan. Little inter-team squabble. Obviously, a lot of traffic out there here on the streets of Belle Isle. What happened in qualifying?
Yeah, just the accordion effect. For some reason, and I'm not sure why, we all got our gaps on that for that first lap. And Bourdais decided to go 5 seconds off the pace on the first green lap. I had no idea that could possibly happen, nor could I foresee that. So I got to go figure out what he was doing.
Okay, talking about the bumps here, we've been talking about it in the booth, watching you guys out there run. It's almost like you need some kind of teeth guard or something in there. Is it that bumpy? Is it at least as bumpy as it looks out there on the big screens at least?
Yeah, it's crazy bumpy for sure.
How do you keep your feet on the pedals?
The first session I barely could. You work on the ride height, work on the setup a bit, but it's going to be hard in traffic tomorrow. The track's a bit rougher than it was last year, but we'll talk about it as a group and figure some stuff out. Maybe we can get a grinder out there or something like that, tonight. I'm not sure, but great facility here, that's for sure. Just the bumps are a bit challenging.
Best of luck to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, that's Ryan Hunter-Ray. He will start 15th. Let's go to Dave first.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on that conversation, a rather heated conversation that Ryan Hunter-Ray was having with Marco Andretti, and Dad Michael Andretti was caught in the middle of all of that. I asked Marco just exactly what was being said in that conversation. He turned to me, hopped on his scooter, and drove off, and he says, 4 words, my teammate blanked me. I'm cleaning that up. So Marco Andretti none too pleased with Ryan Hunter-Ray. Marco will roll off 19th here tomorrow afternoon.
Boy, after a pretty solid month for Andretti Autosport. I think what it does is, while certainly, Davey, you rely on those teammates, that doesn't mean it's always harmonious.
Well, you look at the Andretti team going into the Indianapolis 500. We all thought, wow, they are off the pace. They're not running up front. They're towards the back of the field. Just no luck at all. They show up to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they're the top of the charge. So their cars to beat. They're the car. One of their cars ends up winning the race. And now we come back to another street course off, outside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they're at the bottom of the chart. So it's a little surprising.
Lewis, I got to ask you, what does it mean for the overall health of the series? I know Mike Hull, for one, was very, very pleased at how Honda stepped up their game in qualifying. But what does it mean for the overall health of the series with the month that Honda had?
Well, you'd like to see them compete. Years ago when there was only one engine manufacturer, we have to have someone to beat. But you want the competition. You want a race to be a mystery. You don't want it to be a foregone conclusion. And you'd like to see GM as a fan. You want to see it to be a mystery. And going into Indianapolis, it was almost all Pagano. It was definitely mostly Penske. And Honda seemed to have caught up. And Art St. Cyr said that they have a new spec. But apparently, early days, this isn't the race, this is just qualifying. the Honda was great, on the oval at Indy, and this is the same spec. This was new for Indy. They got the same spec motor here, and so again, I'm not the expert, but if it's just on power, it seems like they're not putting down the same power as the GM here.
Once upon a time, they were the sole engine supplier for the series, as you alluded to. But if you go back even further than that, their first foray into open-wheel racing didn't go very well. And Bobby Rahal can tell you that. He had to bail on that power plant, as I
remember
recall.
that. They had a very heavy engine. And they came out with the engine too fast, and I can say now it was a marketing decision. But when they came back with Chip Ganassi, they were incredible. Different formula. You know what it is? At any time, someone has the best solution, and then they catch up. So the thing is, watch out for them again, in Iowa and other places. But, again, this is one day of practice and qualifying. Honda may make whatever tweak they're allowed. They're not allowed to make big changes, but they could see whatever's going on now, and there's an engineer on every team. So perhaps that's it. I don't know if it's handling. I'll leave it to Davey. I mean, I'm just the observer here.
You mentioned Iowa. I think it was up to Michael Andretti and maybe Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Yeah.
They would race there 4 or 5 times a year. That's almost turned into the Andretti Autosport Invitational at Iowa. So, again, Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Juan Montoya, Takuma Sato, Will Power, and James Hinchcliffe, they advance after round number 1. Those that move on, round number 2, Elio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, Carlos Munoz, Charlie Kimball, Graham Rahal, and Mikel Aloshin. Those not getting in, Newgarden, Max Chilton, Gabby Chavez, Jack Hawksworth, Connor Daly will roll off 16th, Dave First.
I'll tell you, Connor Daly has some fond memories of the streets of Belle Isle. Ran here last year with Smith-Peterson Motorsports. We saw you fighting up front. It's going to take some hard work to get back up front here tomorrow, starting 16th. What's the difference between last year, this race course, and this year, Connor?
Well, last year we started last, and we still were leading the race. So I've got a lot of hope here, but not too many differences in the circuit, I don't think. We went out in qualifying, and the first set of reds felt like they weren't actually tires. It was really, really strange feeling. Like we'd either put the lefts on the rights or something. Something was odd, so we just went around, and it felt like the throttle was sticking, and everything, like the engine braking, wasn't as efficient as it normally is. So the whole first time, I was like, what in the world is going on? Then finally, when we get our second set of tires, everything is sort of sorted out, but we don't have enough time to do it. So I mean, we gain exponentially, but again, we just miss out on it. So we're getting there.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yeah, Connor Daly again rolls off 16th. Michael Young?
Joseph Newgarden just finishing his debrief. Blacks, reds, big difference out here in Belle Isle?
Not as much as other tracks. I mean, the reds help. It's kind of, I feel bad. I guess I tagged the wall slightly. I must have caught the bead because it put our tire down on our first red lap. So I think we would have been all right there. We just had a tire go down and the right rear, so didn't get any laps on the reds. But they help a little bit. You feel a little more rear grip from the thing. You can tack the car a little bit better around here. So they're a positive still.
Just missed that top 12, obviously starting 14th tomorrow for race number 1. Is this a patience track, or do you want to get to the front as quickly as possible?
I don't know at this point. I was focused on getting the thing up front. I think we have the speed to be up there, so I'm not sure. I think you have to be patient regardless around this place because of how bumpy it is and difficult. It can be, you can throw the car in the wall pretty easily. So, yeah, you got to be patient. But, as far as aggression and how you try and get up there, not sure yet. I got to formulate a new plan now.
New teammate with Spencer Pigot. Are you playing the role of the teacher, or is he trying to bring a little to the table as well? Obviously, his first time here at Belle Isle.
Well, Spencer's, first off, he's a great talent. He's an awesome kid. I don't know why I'm calling him a kid. He's the same age as me. He's a great guy, I should say. Really cool guy to work with. And, he deserves to be here being an Indy Lights champion. He's very talented, like I said. And I think he needs a little seat time. He's not had the good fortune like we've had of having plenty of seat time this year. So I think once he gets that, he's gonna be pushing us extremely hard, and he's gonna bring a lot to the table. But I'm just happy he's here, doing a little bit of teaching, but not much. He knows what he's got to do. So it's fun. It's fun having him in the car and having a teammate again.
One last thing: how difficult was it to put last weekend out of your mind? Obviously, so close to winning the Indianapolis 500.
Pretty quickly. We did everything we could. We left it all on the table. Well, I don't think there was a really better execution that the team could have done. They gave me a great car. we had a shot at winning it. We didn't, but that's how Indy rolls. You either have it go your way or you don't. We didn't have it go our way, but it was great to be in that race and have a shot at it.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks.
Joseph Newgarden will start 14th, Mark Janes.
Engines roll to life after the break. Montoya, Castroneves, Hinchcliffe, Alosian, Dixon, Kanaan, Powers, Sato, Rahal, Pagano, Munoz, Kimball. Those are the 12 vying for a spot of the Firestone Fast Six. Davey, I'm all for talent, and I'm all for guys getting their opportunity regardless of where they're from. But let's face it, to a lot of people, it's pretty significant to have an American sponsor, an American owner, and 2 American drivers now with Ed Carpenter Racing.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ed, they put a good program together. I was surprised that came so quickly, but it was a good surprise. We needed more cars in the field. And kind of back to what you guys were talking about between the Honda and the Chevrolet and who's faster this race or who's faster the next. The one thing that you want in any motorsport is you want to be able to have anything win. And one thing for me, to come back after my injuries and get in a race car that made me feel very confident that I had the same car, the same engine, the same tire as everybody else. So that's also a relief, but now it's always good to have the 2 companies that help promote the series that gets, maybe more engine or manufacturers should be involved. But one thing you need for sure is you need them equal, just so that these guys, for example, you get a nice sponsor, you come out there, you had the wrong engine program, you're running the back, it's a very good way to lose a sponsor. So they have to make them equal. It was good to see Honda be competitive and kind of back on the pace. Let's just hope that continues throughout the year.
Lewis, speculating here, the success that Honda and Chevy has fairly consistently in this series, is that maybe keeping a 3rd engine manufacturer or maybe a 4th from appearing on the scene because the bar is set pretty lofty?
Wow, great question. It's a matter of economics. What does this series bring? I think that you'd want another American manufacturer. This series, even if we have international drivers and Dallara being, built in Italy and things like that, I think it would be an American manufacturer you'd want here, and they would just have to see the utility of the sport. I just don't see a foreign company coming in, and there's a lot of extraneous issues which are more CNBC coverage that I watch a lot than this. I don't see it yet. I would like to see a 3rd engine manufacturer. I want to see competition. I want to see. And no offense to Dallara, they make great cars. I'd like to see 2 different type of cars, but it raises the cost. And I think for now, we have to look at the best racing for the best price, and I think that's where we're at.
Will Power with the drive-through for pit exit violation, and again, we're into the final round here of 12, we should say, before we get into the final round of 6 is a more accurate way of putting it. And while these drivers put their cars through these paces, want to update you on a couple of things that's going to happen this weekend. Our good friend Dan Rusanowski, who has worked with us as a pit reporter and a turn announcer when we are in California at both Fontana and Sonoma. 25 years now, Dan has been the play-by-play voice of the San Jose Sharks in the National Hockey League. He is in the midst of calling his first ever Stanley Cup playoff, and congratulations to Dan for that opportunity. So we're going to give him an opportunity throughout the course of this weekend to update us on the Stanley Cup and the San Jose Sharks. So you'll hear from Dan during our race tomorrow and then again on Sunday. But also another feature we've added, Jake Query, you of course a radio host. You host your own show along with Derek Schultz in Indianapolis on 97.5 and 1260. And one of the things you do when people call in is you do a segment called Getting to Know, where you actually ask the listeners personal questions and things about their life just in an effort to get to know them a little better. We decided to allow you to do that with the Verizon IndyCar Series driver. So tell us what you have planned for the weekend.
It's interesting, Mark, in doing that over the course of time, get to know your listeners, what we call it on the radio program. And I have yet to have anybody that doesn't seemingly enjoy it when I, ask a couple of things to get to know them. So we thought, these drivers, we know what they do in the race car, we know their driving record, but do they have kids at home? Maybe what's their favorite movie? What kind of things do they do away from the racetrack that you, a race fan, might have in common with them, where you think to yourself, really, I had no idea that he likes the same food I do. Those are the kinds of things that we want to find out in just a couple of minute conversations each and every week. Got a chance earlier today to talk to Takuma Sato and Max Chilton about those exact things. I enjoyed, and I think they did too, actually, enjoyed the conversations to get a chance to talk about something other than gear shifts and tire strategy. So we'll have a lot of fun with that, Mark, and I look forward to doing it over the course of the season.
Well, and because of the fact they've been so popular, we've asked Donald Davidson to continue throughout the rest of the season with his centennial moments as we start to build momentum toward the 101st Indianapolis 500. So we'll have Donald with us for centennial moments. Another one of our features has become pretty popular is Inside the Paddock. Nick Yeoman handles that. And Nick, you've really taken an inside look at some of the things in the paddock this year that people might not be aware of. For instance, catering and hospitality.
Yeah, it's always fun, Mark, to kind of touch on some of those topics that are away from maybe the racing perspective. This week, in fact, you're going to hear tomorrow, one was a lot to do with the Indianapolis 500. Sat down with Brian Herta a little bit earlier today. Brian, of course, the co-car owner, strategist on that car for Alexander Rossi, and we talked a little bit about fuel mileage and how in the world did he and Alexander Rossi stretch that final tank of fuel as long as they did. It was got some interesting comments from Brian Herta, and a lot of fun, Mark, to talk to some of the lesser known people. We've talked to tire changers, we've talked to engineers, just an opportunity to highlight some more faces and names in the IndyCar paddock other than the 22 drivers that you know and love.
Yeah, Davey, all of this is an effort to do more than just talk about who's winning a race, who the top 10 is, what the pit strategies like, and things of that nature. We want to give our fans an opportunity to really get to know these drivers.
Well, I think it's great. I think it's something that needs to be done. Our drivers are, it's good to know them. It's good to know so you feel like you know them on a personal level and who they are and what they like. And these crew guys and everybody involved, what they go through on the weekend, just engine, from the engine manufacturers to the tires to everything that has to be done. Even Dallara, a company that has to make sure every car and piece is proper for in case they need it. So it's a cool segment.
Under 4 minutes to go in this session, Elio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, Scott Dixon, Takuma Sato, Tony Kanaan, Carlos Munoz to top 6. Dave, first you say business picking up on pit road.
Yeah, business definitely picking up. A lot of the cars in this second round started off on scuffed primary black tires. Now they're going back to the sticker reds, doing whatever they can to get into the Firestone Fast 6 and perhaps have an opportunity to start in the first 3 rows in tomorrow's race. So definitely things are picking up. Elio Castroneves is the latest to take on those secondary red tires. He's ready to go here as time is ticking away. 3 minutes or so left to this qualifying session.
Boy, Davey, we have the access to a multi-screen monitor here, and we've seen plenty of shots from over the head of the driver. We're looking at one right now with Tony Kanaan. That's far from a smooth ride.
Oh, my goodness. Watch his hands. Watch the head bounce around. Watch the sparks come off the bottom of the car from a bottom out. It's there's a lot of times I go around some of these racetracks and you say, man, I wish it wasn't retired and this track's so much fun. When you come here, that's not the case. It's great to be sitting right next to you in this radio booth, I'll tell you.
Lewis, you're shaking your head a little bit. I mean, there are many things that separate them from us, but being able to compete under these conditions over 70 laps is certainly one of them.
And we're looking, as you said earlier, the cars are spaced out. You got to do it in traffic tomorrow. And you just can't touch a wheel or anything. I mean, they're earning their paychecks. There's no question. I have not seen, I haven't quite seen this view before. And my eyes are bouncing with the drivers.
Tony Kanaan making his way through that 4, 5, 6 complex. Sato comes to you first, Jake Query.
Yep, Sato actually keeps a pretty good line. As a matter of fact, he seemed to kind of cut the corner just a little bit through turn number 6. Kanaan now does the same. That back end bobbles just a little bit. It is awfully bumpy here between 6 and 7, Nick.
Yeah, Takuma Sato, he'll lock him up in turn number 7. So some heavy tire smoke for Sato. A lot smooth for Tony Kanaan. You can see him sawing on that wheel through the right-hander in turn 7, and now the left-hander of turn number 8.
The mayor of Hinchtown flings it through turn number 5. He comes to Jake Query in turn 6.
Never difficult to spot his car with that gold on top, that Aero machine. If he looks to his left, he can wave to his hometown province of Ontario, but instead he's going to take a right and come right at you, Nick.
James Hinchcliffe will keep that car to the right side of that back straightaway. Now move it all the way over to the left, across the bump, smoothly through turn number 7, swings it wide through the left-hander of turn number 8. That golden black Honda for Schmidt-Peterson looks fast. It's our Indy 500 pole sitter, James Hinchcliffe.
I guess you do know a little something about this, Davey. You said off the start that we'd eventually get to the 114s. We're there now with the top 3 in Castroneves, Dixon, and Pagenaud.
Yeah, 114.6 for Elio Castroneves. There's top 3 guys, as you said, Castroneves, Dixon, and Pagenaud, all in the top 3, all in the 114s. Then you got Hinchcliffe in that 4th spot in a 1:15.3.
We had 7 guys after the session this morning faster than the track.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing on how the reds just didn't make a huge difference. I mean, there is a difference, but it's not as big as we see at majority of the tracks we go to.
30 seconds remaining in this session. We're watching Carlos Munoz. He's trying to stay inside the top 6 to turn 6, and Jay Query.
Yep, Munoz. Now, he gets just a little bit loose coming out of 5 as well, but in an area at 6 where a lot get loose, he only bobbles once. Carlos Munoz now through turn 7.
Munoz making his way down the back straightaway, keeps that car now pinched up right along the outside wall to the left side of the back straightaway. He's on those alternate reds, those stickier tires. They've got a lot of grip. Here comes Hinchcliffe. Hinch locks them up as he makes his way through turn number 7.
Will Power among those trying to bust off a fast lap. He's through turn number 3, little short straightaway over to 4. Climbs on the binders, points it to the right. He'll burp the throttle a little bit, go down through the gearbox. Will Power the 12 to Jay Query.
They like to space themselves out. Power better hope that Joseph Newgarden stays on a good lap, because Nick, Newgarden coming at you. Power is right there behind him. Then a sizable gap back before Tony Kanaan comes into my view with that other duo going past Nick.
Here comes that silver Verizon Chevrolet. Bobbles just a bit for Will Power. He's got some work to do. Currently 10th quick as he makes his way through turn number 7 and turn number 8. All clear, though, now through turn number 7. Up, here comes Tony Kanaan, that NTT Data Chevrolet. Kanaan hard on the brakes, Mark. He's just on the outside looking in.
And Davey, for those that don't have the screen up, one of the reasons why we don't spend a lot of time on timing and scoring through the first 8 minutes or so of the session is because as fast as we give it, it turns over.
Yeah, it sure does. Will Power, wow, he did not make it. He put himself what is that, in the 9th position right now, the 1:15.714, and he was the fastest in practice. A little surprising there.
Tony Kanaan is another one that appears to be on the outside looking in. So who got in? Elio Castro-Neves. His mastery of Belle Isle continues. Scott Dixon, Simon Pagenaud with a nice rebound. Juan Montoya, James Hinchcliffe, and Carlos Munoz, the 6 that get into the Firestone Fast 6. Those that did not get in, Tony Kanaan will start 7th. Charlie Kimball will start 8th. Will Power 9th. Graham Rahal 10th. Takuma Sato 11th. And Mikel Aloshin 12th as we continue preparations for race number 1 of the duel in Detroit.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive on Firestone.
The Sports Car Vintage Racing Association returns to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 3rd annual Brickyard Vintage Racing Invitational, featuring over 500 vintage race cars. It's Father's Day weekend, June 16th through the 19th. Get your dad a gift he'll never forget and bring him to see the Indy Legends Pro-Am charity race, pairing pros and amateurs driving Camaros, Mustangs, and Corvettes. Experience something cool with your dad for this Father's Day weekend. Tickets start at just $5. Children 12 and under are free. For tickets and information, go to ims.com.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at Belle Isle, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Davey, one guy that appears to have carried some momentum over to Detroit, the 26 of Carlos Munoz after his second place run at the Indianapolis Motor
and then
Speedway.
we look down and we see his teammates. Right now he's in that top 6. We'll find out where he ends up, but his teammates right now are currently 17th, 19th, 15th, 17th, and 19th. So, the one Andretti car is shining is Carlos Munoz.
Louis Frank joins us in the booth here. And, Louis, we talked to Kyle Moyer, race strategist for Simon Pagenaud in the paddock this morning. They felt like they had the fastest race car in the field that didn't have 5th gear.
Wow. So what do you do? Just put it up into 6, Davey?
Well, what happens is that you could see they had problems because you have 2 top gears at Indy normally, and the 6th gear's for speed. I mean, that's the one for speed. So but if you can't get up to that speed and you're in traffic and you need that 5th gear to get it going, sometimes it just bogs down. You can't catch the toes, and that leaves you, sitting behind.
Wow. He had won 3 in a row, Lewis, and I think he found out how fickle things can be at 16th at Georgetown.
You just have to enjoy a streak when you get it and when it's over. And, of course, you'd like your streak to end with the milk at Indy.
Yeah.
You know, his streak just ended 2 weeks too early. But the thing is, though, he's back competitive here. And, I mean, now, as you said, you look for the championship. Indy is over. You have to wait till next year. And, you know, he was a question mark. I remember at Long Beach, you know, saying before he won, you know, maybe they hired him too soon or something, and he proved himself. So, I mean, he belongs with the Penske team now, and he can make a good run at the championship.
Davey, I don't know if you want to use the co-owner's hat here or the driver's hat here. Your thoughts of doubleheader weekends? We had more than one a couple of years ago. Now we're down to one.
Well, I'll have to be honest, because people could go back and listen to me where I said I do not like the doubleheader weekends. You know, I was, but then and we came here and I was against it because it was so much work for these guys and just so much. I was worried about the fans coming to 2 races and having full grandstands. There was a lot of things, but then and the first day went by and I thought, geez, we got to do this all again. And then at the time, my driver Simon Pagano won. I loved him after that. I thought, perfect. Yeah, that doubleheader weekend was great. You know, we loved it. So I, you know, as long as they work for the promoters and the fans all come and we get full grandstands both days, and these teams I know work extremely hard. If it works for everybody, I'm all for it. I really am. And I think the toughest thing right now, you know, Roger knows if fans come to both days and we have people come in to help pay for what this costs. And, you know, as Rossi said, hope my hands can handle for 2 days of this. So.
Tony Ganon on the outside looking into the Firestone Fast 6. Dave First, your driver analyst for the month of May on RTV6 in Indianapolis. We'll roll off 7.
Yeah, we're going to find out whether or not he's happy with it. A big jump from practice this morning, but on the outside looking in the Firestone Fast 6. Happy with that? You'll roll off 7 tomorrow.
I mean, we couldn't have been in the Fast 6. I made a little mistake on my fast lap on this last qualifying, so it cost us a 10th, and that put us out of the Fast 6. But in the high side, we have better tires than those guys, so we're not that far off. Great job from the team. This morning we struggled quite a bit, and it was a good bounce back, so I'm happy.
When you say you have better tires, did you guys only go through one set of reds or what?
No, they're going to have to use the set for the Fast 6. We're not in the Fast 6, so we'll have better tires than them.
So always the optimist there. That's a good way to look at it.
I got to look at the positive at some point. So
what are you chasing out here? I mean, everybody's talking about how bumpy it is this year here at Detroit.
You're chasing grip over the bumps, which is really hard. I mean, you got to really pay attention where you're braking, where you're putting your car in the straight line, because you can hit a bump and you can slow down a lot. So it's as bumpy as it's ever been. This is the characteristic of this track. I think this is something that it's in Bendman in Detroit, which it makes a difference for the cars, which, you know, I don't think is a bad thing.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Tony Kanaan rolls off 7th. Michael Young.
With Graham Rahal. Graham, this team knocking on the door. Not what you wanted in qualifying. Still 10th, not bad. How difficult is it to figure this place out and get in the car just right?
Yeah, it's tough. For sure, I would say that, you know, the balance is definitely a difficult thing. We actually we had a little unfortunate deal there as well where, you know, the bumps are so bad here. My left side seatbelt actually came undone. So we had to be pretty cautious because of that, so we couldn't really advance. I don't know why that's happening, but it's the bumps between 2 and 3 are so severe the seatbelt's having an issue. So I've got to go back and obviously change those, try to make sure that doesn't happen again. But my balance on the blacks was really good. My balance on the reds just isn't very good, so got a little bit of work to do there. Ultimately, I will say this. I think on the blacks, for sure, in the long run, the United Rentals car is very, very competitive. So I feel pretty good going into tomorrow.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's got a brand new livery. Beautiful car. Metallic blue and black. That's Graham Rahal. He will start 10th, Dave Hurst.
And Charlie Kimball's back with the 83. Are you happy with that qualifying effort?
I am reasonably happy. We had quite a few issues on the 83 car this morning. Must have been gremlins going from the 42 to the 83 from last week to this week. But honestly, pretty happy with that. We felt really good about the qualifying run to end up in the top 12 there. And then I screwed up my last lap. I apologize to the guys on pit in because there was another couple of tenths in the Novo Nordisk car, but I didn't get it out of it. So it would have been close to putting us through to the Fast 6, but overall, a row 4 starting spot for Dual 1 I'm pretty happy with it.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, you will.
Charlie Kimball ready to roll tomorrow. He'll roll off 8th. Mark James.
So the bumps are so pronounced that it loosened the seatbelt.
That's not scary.
The harness.
That's interesting. I don't know exactly what's happening. He said his left side belt. So yeah, they'll go change that for sure. Obviously, there's something going on there, whether it's his elbow or something's hitting the seatbelt release. But But that's crazy. That's scary. Because if that happens in the race, you have no choice but stop, do your seatbelt up, just because we're going. The last thing you want is a seatbelt loose while you're racing.
Yeah, you can't just hold it.
Yeah, you can try, but it's not going to work out for you.
Paul Tracy won a race at Laguna Seca that had ups and downs with loose seat belts. I don't know how he did that. My buddy Mike Harris called it Paul's wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have continued to massage this format, and 6 minutes is all this last session will be, so it'll be important that they get out there and get going in a hurry. And Michael Young is with the guy that'll roll off 11th, Takuma Sato.
He made it to round 2, didn't get to the Fast 6. Talk us through your qualifying. Obviously, you wanted to make this Fast 6, but still, not a bad go.
Not bad at all, but it's a little bit frustrated, as it was quite competitive at the beginning of the session, and we seems to be fall off on alternate the set of tire, which is it's a little bit tough today. There was sliding, and I don't know whether the condition or setup, we just couldn't make most of it. So hopefully tomorrow we gather all the data and then find how we can go make it quicker on the alternate tires.
If it's any consolation, I think every driver is saying the same thing. It's a tough go trying to get a good balance today.
I think so. I think it was. But at least the harder compound, the black tire, seems to be very consistent. So we are pretty happy with that, and it's just to make it better for the Reds.
Good luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
Takuma Sato will start 11th. Interesting, all the drivers, at least the ones that I've talked to, said the blacks are the good. It's the Reds are having difficulties with.
5 minutes remaining in this session. The green flag is out. It's Montoya, Castro Neves, Hinchcliffe, Scott Dixon, Simon Pagenaud, and Carlos Munoz. Those are the 6th who are vying for the pole here. Race number 1 of the duel in Detroit. You may wonder, okay, how will they set the field for race number 2? Well, we'll have a practice session tomorrow, essentially the 30-minute final warm-up at 10:05 Eastern. Join us for that. And then the race, of course, at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then Sunday, qualifying at 10:40, which will run till 11:15, and then race number 2 at 3 o'clock Eastern. Pretty interesting format. They settled in on it a couple of years ago, Davey, with a short all-skate, more or less, qualifying session at 10:40.
Yeah, pretty interesting right before the race, actually, so it's a qualifying warm-up all in one, but it's interesting. I mean, they just somehow you put a qualifying deal to get it safe for everybody. That's the key thing, and so it's going to be fun to watch that.
Well, for some drivers, I mean, how many times in your career before you got into the cockpit of an Indy car, in all of the forms of racing that you're involved in, not unusual to go practice qualifying and racing all in one day.
Yeah, no, well, that's usually what I'm used to and what we come up with within 5 or 6 hours. So I think it's pretty cool. Remember the days of having a pit stop during qualifying, and that was
interesting.
in
Texas one year.
Yeah, with no speed limit on pit lane at one point. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, so whatever, it makes it fun. It's just, like I say, it's the same for everybody. It's a different element, and just doing it again, with all skate kind of on Sunday.
Davey, that's the only time I ever remember no crew member, no driver ever left pit road. Everybody stood up on the wall and watched the entire qualifying session, and the fans were into it at Texas Motor Speedway, and it just kind of went away.
I thought it was exciting. I mean, I was part of it and had fun, and it was a challenge because we're so used to coming off the back straightaway, if you remember, and then get to a speed limit. Well, when there was no speed limit, it was a whole different game. We're coming down pit lane at, really 150 mile an hour or faster, and coming to a stop, and then having to leave that pit, and at one point come back to the start-finish line. One year it was just into pit lane, and so they had different ways, but it was exciting. It was a lot of pressure as well.
Yeah, the guys that missed their pit boxes didn't make the crew too happy.
Yeah, right.
I saw that a few times.
Yeah, that happened.
Simon Pagenaud, Carlos Munoz, the only 2 so far that have cleared the timing and scoring loop. Carlos Munoz, Pagenaud, and Castro Neves now the top 3. Lewis, of course, Boston fell apart, quite frankly. That's going to be tied up in court, we think, for quite some time. We're not asking you for a legal opinion here, even though I'm sure you have one as a longtime attorney. But how about Jay Fry, Mark Miles and company? it didn't take very long to find, I think, a wonderful replacement for that race. I'm thrilled to death to be going back to Watkins Glen Labor Day weekend.
I love Watkins Glen. I went there for the short course. I've been there for the long course when they ran F1. The weather is better around Labor Day, but I did hear a funny thing I've got to tell you. I heard someone say they would boo a rainbow in Boston. I don't know what goes on there. But getting back to Watkins Glen, it's got the tradition, it's got the there's wineries around there, good restaurants. I mean, if you're near that region, I mean, you're going to have a great weekend. And, again, good weather. I've been up there for fog races. I've been there for just about every kind of thing. How they put it together so quickly is good, except, I just hope there's enough time to promote it properly. That's my only issue.
And I think IndyCar and Watkins Glen will work very, very hard in that regard. But let's face it, Louis, we talk about Long Beach and we talk about Road America, Laguna Seca, and certainly the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Milwaukee Mile. That takes its rightful place among the historic motorsports venues in North America.
Oh, sure. I mean, they've been racing there actually down in the streets in the 50s. Till they moved it up the hill there. I call it up the hill. And you have winners there, the famous winners. You read who raced there and you just get a chill, just like being at Indy. It's should be a very good time.
Davey, it doesn't take long for that 6 minutes to a lap. We're inside of 1 minute already, and it's Pagenaud, Castro-Neves, Montoya, Munoz, Dixon, and Hinch. Hinch was a late taker. It looked like he was going to lay it all on the line on 1 or 2 laps.
Yeah, Elio finds himself again on top, barely over his teammate Simon Pagenaud, and then Juan Montoya, so no surprise, 3 Penske cars on top. But one thing about Watkins Glen, too, Mark, they repaved it. It's new pavement, and that track is so blazing fast. From every time I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, you're going so fast, right? The sports cars went there and broke their track record by 3 seconds. So imagine what the Indy car is going to be like. It's going to be amazing.
So we've got Castro-Neves, Pagenaud, Montoya, Dixon, Hinchcliffe, and Carlos Munoz. Those are the top 6 with 12 seconds remaining. Davey, what's it do to the engineers setting up these race cars when you're dealing with a track this bumpy? How tough is that?
Yeah, it is tough, and I mean something to compare to. Back in the early IRL days, we went to Dover International Raceway, which is a concrete track as well, which is super bumpy. And we went there for a test once with Gallus when I was driving for Gallus, and we spent the entire day working on our shock program just to make it ride the bumps better. And it was so key, and we ended up being really good there. But it's about what you have to do to get the car to go over the bumps smoothly, which is hard to do when you got these cars so low to the ground. But that is a key thing for today, I think.
And so how you talk about tools in the cockpit that the driver has at their disposal. How much will they be messing with those tools? And let's define what those tools are as they make their way around.
Yeah, so one of the things that they do is just your anti-roll bars, front and rear sway bars, which stiffens or softens the front or back. Well, one thing to help it go over the bumps is being a little softer, and it gives them more grip. But then at some point, that you got to have your car higher so it doesn't bottom out. And when the higher you go, the less downforce you have aerodynamically. So it's going to be, it's that give and take, but they do have those tools in there to be able to work it.
Scott Dixon clears the timing and scoring loop, the last one to do so. So, Davey, I guess what happened at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is just a painful memory for Simon Pagenaud. He's back to P1 here for race number 1 tomorrow. Elio, Montoya, Hinch, Munoz, and Dixon, your top 6.
Wow, it was amazing. That Elio Castro-Neves, it showed him as the fastest, and then I don't know if I don't know if they had the times backwards or what.
Two separate timing and scoring. We went with the official one from IndyCar, which
and
had
this one changed,
Simon P1. So what we have here now, the IndyCar timing and scoring is Pagenaud, Castro-Neves, Montoya, Hinch, Munoz, and Dixon. So Pagenaud gets the pole.
Yeah, and how about this? A 14.916 for Pagenaud, a 14.928 for Elio Castro-Neves, almost exact times. But then you got third quick, a ways off, a 1:15.5, over a half a second, slower for Juan Montoya in that third spot. So, boy, I tell you what, Simon and Elio had good laps.
Simon, third pole of the season, Lewis. Anybody that entertained thoughts of him maybe showing a little chink in the armor, he kind of put that talk to rest here today.
Again, we're back on the road courses. I know we raced in Phoenix once, but I think the Penske package, for the street courses and the road courses, they've got a good setup at the moment. Again, as Davey knows, you get the advantage a little while, and then it turns around. But it's like you said, Indy is just a bad memory for some of the teams.
Davey, we go back and talk to the drivers 7 through 12. I think the only one we didn't talk to was Mikel Aloshin, and it's always interesting to me the difference in the mindset, those that don't get into the Fast 12 as opposed to those who do and start 7 through 12. Let's go to pit road and Michael Young.
Yeah, Elio Castroneves will start on the outside of row 1. He's went from smiles to anger to smiles to disappointment. You've had a range of emotion in a short amount of time. Yeah. You almost got the pole.
Yeah, it's no, good job for the Hitachi Team Penske. Let me get the camera there, man. Come on, you see you there? Come on, you gotta make sure you.
Oh, sorry, I'm a radio guy.
All right, so now great job Hitachi Team Penske. The boys did an unbelievable job, and Simon just nipped me over there with I thought it was actually, when Roger told me it was like 49, I was like, okay, for 74.4 I wouldn't be able to make it. But when I looked at time, it was just 100. Oh man, I would have squeezed a little bit something out there, I tell you. But great job for the entire organization. Jonathan Dugib gave me a phenomenal car since we started here this morning, and I can't believe it's so close to get the #1 spot. But it's okay. Simon, it's in a hot streak, so he get the pole, I got the win, no problem.
There you go. Let's do a quick wave to the fans out there. There we are, right there. Thanks, Elio. Elio Castroneves will start on the outside of row #1. Dave First with our pole sitter.
He had an opportunity to catch up with Simon Pagenaud, who still is in the car, and they started rolling the car on me. Simon, hang tight. We're going to get you on the radio here momentarily. They just started rolling the car. How rude is that, guys? Anyway, they're moving the car over to the Verizon pit stand where they can start the celebration more properly with all the photo ops and whatnot. Simon Pagenaud with his third pole this season, 5th career pole. So we're going to hear from Simon Pagenaud momentarily. We've got to stall a little bit. We got to tap dance a little bit, Mark James.
Yeah, I think we can handle that. So Davey, we've addressed it. The setup issues for the engineers and how busy these drivers are going to be. What sort of a toll does this take on a driver physically when you know you're in for such a long day tomorrow physically?
Oh, it does take a toll, and as they keep saying that, blisters on your hands and just bouncing around that car. I mean, it's headaches just bouncing around your head that whole time, and trying to keep your feet and your legs. It beats you up mentally and physically that entire time. So having 2 races here is for sure one of the hardest weekends for these drivers.
So Lewis, before we let you go, when you're not with us, we want to give folks an opportunity to know how they can follow you on Twitter and where they can find your outstanding work.
Okay. My name is weird. Lewisfranck. I said that fast. And I write for Reuters. I did a feature on the not Andretti curse at Indianapolis recently. And that's where you can read me these days. And I'm available for weddings and confirmations and anything else you have for me.
Lawsuits? Can you handle lawsuits for us?
I am a retired attorney, but like the Hotel California, I can check out, but I can't leave. I have to fill out a form every 2 years saying I'm not practicing law.
You're back to following fenders, and we understand that's where you have to be right now. Let's go back to pit road and Michael Young.
Well, one good thing is I'm quicker than Scott Dixon's scooter. Actually, that's not true. Scott stopped for us. Good qualification run. You look a little disappointed, but still you'll be starting 6th.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there on the last run. The car was just horrible. I don't know if we got the tires on the wrong way or something, but yeah, the cars felt pretty good. We've had good speed, and I don't know, we fell off like almost 2 seconds there.
All right, we'll let you get back to it.
Thank you.
All right, Scott Dixon will start on the outside of row #3. Let's go to Dave First.
Okay, now Simon Pagenaud's in his proper place for all the photos and whatnot. Congratulations, another pole this season. How difficult was that?
Yeah, I tell you, it's super physical out there. The track is awesome. It's a real straight fight out there, and the 22 car was amazing. Glad to have HP back on board with us. They have a lot of them are here this weekend, so I'm glad we could do well for them. The team is just doing incredible, and glad we could keep the momentum going. Obviously, last weekend wasn't exactly like we wanted, but we're back.
I was going to say, 500 aside, do you feel like you're back at a proper place right now?
Yeah, honestly, we've never left it. I mean, we were really strong during the race at the 500, but it is what it is. You can't always be up there, but certainly awesome feeling today, and what a cool track.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Simon Pagenaud, former champion here on Belle Isle, 3rd pole this season, 5th career pole.
So, Davey, given the fact that you essentially have 2 sessions today, practice and qualifying, then a 30-minute session tomorrow, then a couple of races and a short qualifying session on Sunday, this is out of the norm in terms of a race weekend. How tough is it? How demanding is it on these drivers and crews? Is that margin of error bunched up a little bit?
Oh, big time.
It's small already.
Yeah, no, it's big time bunch up, especially if you have an incident on the first race, and if you have to fix a car to these guys, then it's a ton of work, and so the driver has to stay healthy and strong mentally and physically, but that team, they just hope nothing goes wrong between race 1 and race 2.
You are largely responsible for bringing Hewlett-Packard a few years ago to the series. I'm sure you're thrilled to see that relationship continue.
Yeah, it is. We had Hewlett-Packard for 7 years, and we had it with a couple years with Simon as our driver, and it's good to see Hewlett-Packard pulled out for a few years, but they love Simon. He did a good job for him, won some races, and they're not full-time like we'd like to see him, but they're at a few races, and this is one of them.
22nd starter tomorrow will be Jack Hawksworth. 21st will be Spencer Piggott. 20th will be Gabby Chavez. Starting 19th, Marco Andretti. 18th, Max Chilton. 17th, Alexander Rossi. 16th, Connor Daly. 15th, Ryan Hunter-Ray. 14th, Joseph Newgarden. 13th, Sebastian Bourdais. Starting 12th, Mikel Aloshin. Starting 11th, Takuma Sato. Graham Rahal will start 10th. Starting 9th, Will Power. 8th, Charlie Kimball. 7th, Tony Kanaan. 6th, Scott Dixon. 5th, Carlos Munoz. Starting 4th, James Hinchcliffe. 3rd, Juan Montoya. Starting up front in P2, Elio Castro Neves. And your pole sitter, the 22, your points leader, Simon Pagenaud, the top 20 within less than 2 seconds of one another. Busy day tomorrow. We'll have a final warm-up session at 10:05 Eastern. That'll run for 30 minutes. And then race number 1 will come your way at 3 p.m. Eastern. Man in control back at our Indianapolis studios is Chris Pollock. On-site engineering and production by Rick Evans. The director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network and IndyCar Radio is Wally Levitt. Out on the course today, Jake Query and Nick Yeoman. Super job on pit road as always by Michael Young and Dave First. Thanks to Louis Frank for joining us in the broadcast booth today. And for our driver analysts, this is Mark Janes inviting you again to join us tomorrow morning at 10:05 for the first warm-up session as we get ready for race number 1, the Chevrolet Duel in Detroit. I'm Mark Janes. So long for now from beautiful Belle Isle.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers in just a moment. Lou Palmer is in victory lane as A.J. Foyt takes now his victory lap around the 2.5 miles of Indianapolis. A record-breaking end to a record-breaking month. A.J. Foyt, the 4th win at Indianapolis. A month that saw the 200-mile-an-hour barrier broken, not just in the practice where it is unofficial, but in the qualifying by Tom Sneva, our second-place car at the moment. And then, too, the first woman to enter, to qualify, and to compete in a 500-mile race, Janet Guthrie of New York City. But for the moment, the name is A.J. Foyt of Houston, Texas. The car is his, a Coyote. The engine is his, a Foyt V8. And happiness, fame, and fortune are his, too. He is the winner of the 61st running of the Indianapolis 500. Pat Vidan continues to display the checkered flag to the 11 other cars running on the race course at the moment. They hand him now the red flag. He will use that